Picture this. You're walking through a dense, forgotten jungle, or maybe across a windswept desert plain, when your foot strikes something solid and unyielding. You brush away the sand and soil, and there it is, a massive stone creature, half buried in the earth, its features worn by centuries of rain and sun, yet still unmistakably powerful, still radiating an aura of ancient mystery. That sense of awe, that sudden connection to a distant past, is exactly what draws us to these incredible relics. These aren't just rocks shaped by human hands. They are the 26 stone beasts of the ancients, and they hold secrets that rewrite everything we thought we knew about sculpture, art, and the people who came before us. For generations, many of these figures were classified simply as art, beautiful, perhaps, but ultimately decorative. But what if we've been looking at them all wrong? What if these stone beasts were never meant to be just admired in a gallery? Imagine them instead as guardians of sacred sites, their stone eyes watching over temples and tombs. Think of them as symbols of cosmic beliefs, carved to represent the raw power of nature and the divine. Envision them as tools of ritual, used in ceremonies that connected communities to the heavens, or as markers of territory, silently proclaiming the power of a king or a culture across vast and untamed landscapes. Some even functioned as early forms of communication, their forms telling stories and transmitting knowledge long before the written word. In this video, we're going on a journey across continents and through millennia to uncover the truth behind these enigmatic figures. We'll explore how a simple block of stone was transformed into a being of immense spiritual and practical significance, and why these creations continue to captivate historians, archaeologists, and adventurers alike. You'll discover what these beasts reveal about the civilizations that dared to create them, their fears, their ambitions, their understanding of the universe, and their desire to leave something permanent behind. So prepare yourself to see these ancient sculptures in a whole new light. We're about to delve into their hidden roles and enduring legacies, and the story is more fascinating than you can possibly imagine. To truly understand these stone beasts, we have to step out of our modern mindset, where art is often separate from daily life, and travel back to the ancient worlds that gave them meaning. These were not societies that carved stone for decoration alone. For them, the boundary between the physical world and the spiritual realm was thin, almost porous. A massive block of stone was more than just a canvas. It was a substance of permanence, a vessel waiting to be filled with intention, power, and divine presence. Imagine the immense effort required to quarry, transport, and carve these figures without the machinery we have today. That effort itself was a form of devotion, a statement that this object was worth generations of labor. The purpose of these sculptures was deeply woven into the fabric of their cultures. In places like ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, a stone beast was a political statement, a declaration of a pharaoh's or king's divine right to rule and their power to protect their people. Its placement at a city gate or tomb entrance was a calculated act, designed to project authority to both visiting dignitaries and potential enemies. Simultaneously, it served a profound spiritual function. As archaeologist Dr. Elena Torres explains, these sculptures were often positioned as guardians at thresholds, the doorways to temples, the edges of sacred plazas, the entrances to the underworld. They were eternal sentinels standing watch between the known human world and the unpredictable realm of gods, spirits, and ancestors. Their design was never arbitrary. Every curl of a mane, the set of a jaw, or the spread of a wing was loaded with meaning, influenced by a complex mix of environmental factors, religious doctrines, and political needs. A culture living in a fertile river valley, dependent on seasonal floods for survival, might venerate aquatic creatures and sculpt serpentine beasts to control the waters. A nomadic empire spanning vast deserts might lionize creatures of immense strength and endurance, symbols of their own ability to conquer harsh landscapes. The very stone they used was often chosen with care: local volcanic rock for its connection to earth gods, or imported granite for its perceived durability and ability to hold a spiritual charge across centuries. This context transforms these figures from silent statues into active participants in the drama of ancient life. They were not just representations of power, they were instruments of it. They weren't merely illustrations of myths, they were functional objects used in rituals to make those myths a reality. By recognizing that a single sculpture could be a territorial marker, a religious icon, a piece of political propaganda, and an engineering marvel all at once, we begin to see them as their creators intended, as multifunctional masterpieces, the ultimate expression of a civilization's identity, fears, and aspirations carved in enduring stone. But to truly grasp the power these stone creatures held, we must venture beyond their physical form and into the realm of story. For ancient peoples, mythology was not a collection of fanciful tales. It was the very framework of reality, a comprehensive guide to understanding the world, the cosmos, and humanity's place within it. These grand narratives gave meaning to the rising sun, the changing seasons, and the mysteries of life and death. And the stone beasts we're exploring were far more than simple illustrations of these myths. They were their physical heartbeats, made manifest in the world for all to see and interact with. Think of it this way: a story told around a fire is powerful, but it is fleeting. It exists in the moment and then lives on only in memory. But when that same story is carved into a mountainside or sculpted from a single, massive block of granite, it becomes permanent. It becomes a truth that cannot be questioned. A perfect example is the Egyptian Sphinx, which we'll explore in depth later. Its leonine body and pharaoh's head were not an artist's whimsy. They were a direct, stone-carved sentence from the myth of the sun god Ra's journey across the sky, declaring the king's divine right to rule as the god's earthly representative. It was a statement of power, yes, but also a piece of the cosmos made solid. This principle extends across the globe. In Norse cultures, the dragon heads mounted on the prows of Viking longships were not mere decorations to frighten enemies. They were direct invocations of myths, calls to the great world Serpent Jörmungandr or other draconic beings from their cosmology. Sailors believed these carved beasts possessed a sliver of the mythic creature's essence, offering protection against the terrifying, unknown dangers of the open ocean. The sculpture was a functional talisman, a piece of a mythological story enlisted for a very real, very dangerous journey. These stone beasts often served as embodiments of universal archetypes that resonated across different cultures. The guardian, like the Lamashu of Mesopotamia, stood watch at gateways both physical and spiritual. The trickster, often represented in more ambiguous animal forms in indigenous American petroglyphs, taught lessons about wisdom and folly. The creator, seen in vast serpentine forms like the Aboriginal rainbow serpent, was honored with stone arrangements that marked the very places where the world was believed to have been shaped. By giving these archetypes a fixed, tangible form, communities created constant, visible reminders of their values and their understanding of how the universe operated. This interplay between myth and stone was perhaps the most powerful educational tool available before widespread literacy. A complex philosophical concept or a detailed creation story could be communicated through a single, awe-inspiring image. A person wouldn't need to read hieroglyphs or cuneiform to understand that a winged bull with a human head was a protective, divine force. The sculpture itself was the text. In this way, these stone beasts acted as narrative anchors, grounding abstract, often overwhelming spiritual beliefs into something tangible, approachable, and unforgettable. They unified people, providing a shared visual language that reinforced cultural identity and collective memory, ensuring that the most important stories would be told not just for a generation, but for millennia. And so we arrive at our first guardian, a figure so immense and so familiar that it has become the very definition of ancient mystery. Rising from the sands of the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx is not merely a statue. It is a silent, brooding presence that has watched over the desert for thousands of years. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, this colossal hybrid, a lion's powerful body paired with the head of a pharaoh, most likely King Khafre, represents a breathtaking fusion of natural strength and royal intellect. But to the ancient Egyptians, it was infinitely more than an impressive piece of sculpture. It was a divine declaration, a permanent symbol of the pharaoh's role as the earthly embodiment of the sun god Ra, whose daily journey across the sky was as vital as the Nile's floods. The Sphinx's primary function was one of protection. It was strategically positioned to face the rising sun in the east, acting as the eternal guardian of the nearby pyramid tombs and the vast necropolis. Its sheer size and imposing visage were designed to intimidate any malevolent forces, whether human invaders or supernatural spirits, that might threaten the sacred journey of the deceased pharaohs into the afterlife. It was the ultimate sentinel, a creature of stone meant to project an aura of invincibility and divine authority for all eternity. Yet, its role may have extended even beyond the spiritual realm into the celestial. Some researchers studying its alignment propose that the Sphinx could have functioned as a sophisticated astronomical marker. Its gaze may have been calibrated to align with specific constellations, like the lion-shaped Leo, during key seasonal events, effectively making it a colossal calendar stone that helped regulate the agricultural and religious cycles of the kingdom. This brings us to the mysteries that have swirled around it for centuries, most famously the missing nose and the fragments of a ceremonial beard found at its base. While popular legend often blames Napoleon's soldiers for the damage, historical sketches prove the nose was missing long before his arrival. The truth is likely more mundane, perhaps the result of iconoclastic vandalism or even erosion over millennia. But these imperfections only add to its enigmatic character. The true genius of the Sphinx lies in its perfect symbolism. The lion, revered as a symbol of raw power and the fierce heat of the sun, is combined with the human head, representing reason, leadership, and the divine soul of the king. This was the ideal ruler, the physical strength to protect the realm coupled with the wisdom to govern it justly. The Great Sphinx of Giza is the ultimate prototype, the masterpiece that establishes the blueprint for all the stone beasts to follow. It shows us from the very beginning that these figures were never meant to be simple art. They were power made visible, faith carved in stone, and a civilization's deepest hopes for protection and eternity given a face and a form. Now, we travel across the Atlantic and leap forward in time to the humid, vibrant heart of ancient Mesoamerica, where the Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of the region, carved their own answer to the monumental. Forget the hybrid creatures of the old world. The Olmec stone beasts are startlingly, powerfully human. Imagine encountering one of these colossal heads for the first time. 17 of them have been discovered, each carved from a single gargantuan basalt boulder, some standing over 9 feet tall and weighing as much as 50 tons, the equivalent of a full-sized school bus rendered in solid volcanic rock. Their faces are unforgettable, broad, with full lips, wide noses, and eyes that seem to hold a deep, inscrutable knowledge. Each one is an individual, adorned with a unique, intricate helmet, leading experts to believe they are portraits of powerful, specific Olmec rulers. To call these sculptures monuments is to drastically undersell their purpose. In a land without written records as we know them, these heads were the history books. They were permanent, immovable statements of political power and dominance. Erected in the ceremonial centers of San Lorenzo and La Venta, they served as a constant reminder to the populace of who was in charge. Their sheer, overwhelming scale was a form of propaganda, a demonstration of a ruler's ability to command the resources and labor required to execute such a feat. But their function likely ran deeper than simple glorification. Many archaeologists theorize they were central to the ritual ballgame, a sacred sport with profound cosmological significance. The distinctive helmets could have been protective gear for the game, and the heads themselves may have been arranged around the court or even used as markers, linking the ruler's authority to the ritual reenactment of myths of life, death, and rebirth. The true awe, however, comes not just from their size but from the incredible journey they undertook. The basalt for these heads came from the Tuxtla Mountains, quarried using stone tools and immense patience. The real mystery is how the Olmecs, who had no draft animals, no wheels, and no metal tools, transported these 50-ton monoliths over 50 miles of swampy lowlands, rugged hills, and rivers. The prevailing theory is a breathtaking display of coordinated labor and ingenuity. They likely used a combination of log rollers, rope made from native fibers, and a vast workforce to slowly, painstakingly drag each boulder on a sled. Some suggest they may have even partially floated them on rafts along river networks. This was not just art, it was a monumental logistical operation, a testament to social organization and engineering prowess that is staggering to contemplate. Ultimately, the Olmec colossal heads stand as a powerful counterpoint to the Sphinx. Where one was a mythical guardian, the others are profoundly human. They remind us that stone beasts could also be tools of community identity, celebrating individual leaders while showcasing the collective strength of the society that could bring them into being. They are feats of both artistic expression and raw political will, carved not to guard the afterlife, but to cement a legacy in the living world. Leaving the colossal human visages of the Olmecs behind, we now journey to a tradition where the beast is both guardian and a profound expression of cultural order. Flanking the entrances to imperial palaces, ancient temples, and even modern bank headquarters across China and beyond, you will find them, a matched pair of stone lions, their postures regal and their expressions a blend of ferocity and solemn duty. These are the Shi, the Chinese guardian lions, and their silent vigil is one of the most recognizable and enduring examples of stone beasts in the world. But to simply call them decorations would be to miss their deep, layered significance. They are a perfect marriage of spiritual belief, social structure, and artistic rule, all carved into a single, powerful form. Unlike the singular, monumental Sphinx or the individualized Olmec heads, the Shi are almost always encountered as a pair, and this duality is the first key to understanding them. They are a balanced unit representing the essential harmony of complementary forces. The male lion is traditionally placed on the right side. Under his powerful paw, he holds an embroidered ball, a symbol of the world or the celestial orb, representing his authority over the realm and his role in protecting the structure's power and prestige. On the left stands the female. Beneath her paw, a playful cub rests on its back, symbolizing nurture, the continuity of the family line, and the protection of the household's descendants. Together, they are more than just protectors. They are a complete symbolic system guarding against both physical and spiritual threats while simultaneously promising prosperity and legacy. Their evolution is a story of cultural exchange and adaptation. While lions were not native to China, knowledge of them traveled along the Silk Road, likely through gifts from Central Asian and Persian embassies to the Han Dynasty court. This exotic animal, revered for its strength and majesty, was gradually incorporated into Chinese artistic vocabulary. However, it was the spread of Buddhism from India that truly cemented the lion's role as a divine protector. In Buddhist iconography, the lion is the sacred mount of the Bodhisattva Manjushri, symbolizing the power of wisdom to cut through ignorance. It was believed these stone beasts possessed the innate power to see malevolent spirits and deter them with their fierce gaze, acting as spiritual sentinels for the sacred spaces they guarded. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Shi is their strict adherence to formal conventions. Their design was never left to an artist's whim. Every curl of their elaborate manes, which often number in symbolic counts, their broad chests, and their wide, glaring eyes follow precise iconographic rules established over centuries. This rigidity reflects the core Confucian values of order, hierarchy, and propriety that permeated Chinese society. Just as there was a proper way to behave in court, there was a proper way to carve a guardian lion. Their stylized appearance, more symbolic than naturalistic, ensured they communicated their intended message of power and protection clearly and consistently to everyone, from the educated scholar to the common farmer, making them a universal language of security and cultural values etched in stone for all to understand. Now let's turn our attention to the heart of the ancient world, to the dusty plains of Mesopotamia, where empires rose and fell with the seasons, and where the need for protection was etched into the very stone that guarded their gates. Here we encounter the Lamashu, a being so conceptually brilliant that it transcends simple categorization. Imagine approaching the great capital city of an Assyrian king. The sun is blistering, the landscape is vast, and ahead lie the immense fortified walls. As you draw nearer, you see them, colossal figures carved from single blocks of alabaster or limestone, flanking the arched gateways. They stand easily twice the height of a human, with the powerful, muscled body of a bull or a lion, the majestic wings of a great eagle spread wide, and the bearded, crowned head of a king, its expression one of serene, imperturbable authority. This is the Lamashu, and its very presence was a multifaceted message intended to awe, intimidate, and reassure all at once. Their primary, most immediate function was apotropaic, that is, they were designed to ward off evil. In the Assyrian worldview, the world was filled with invisible demonic forces that could bring sickness, ruin, and defeat. The Lamashu were the ultimate spiritual guardians, placed at the most vulnerable point of any city, its entrance. They were the first line of defense, using their combined attributes to create an impenetrable spiritual shield. The bull's body represented immense strength and earthy stability. The wings symbolized the divine realm, the ability to rise above and survey all. The human head embodied intelligence, reason, and the sovereign power of the king who commanded them. This hybrid nature made them the perfect protectors, capable of confronting any threat, whether physical or supernatural, but their role extended far beyond just scaring off demons. They were also instruments of raw political propaganda and psychological warfare. For any visiting ambassador, trader, or conquered enemy, passing between a pair of these giants was a deeply humbling experience. The sheer scale was meant to diminish you, to impress upon you the unimaginable power and resources of the Assyrian monarch. Inscriptions often carved across their bodies, known as the standard inscription, would list the king's titles, his divine right to rule, and his mighty conquests, ensuring that even an illiterate visitor could not mistake the source of this power. The message was clear: if the king could command such celestial beings in stone, what chance did any mortal enemy stand against his real army? The most ingenious aspect of the Lamashu, however, is a subtle detail you might only notice if you walk around one. From the front, the creature appears to be standing perfectly still, its two forelegs planted firmly, a monument of unwavering vigilance, but as you move to the side, you see it has 5 legs. The two from the front view are joined by another set, creating the illusion that the Lamashu is caught in mid-stride, forever walking forward. This was no artistic error. This clever design meant that from whichever angle you viewed it, whether approaching head-on or seeing it from the side as you passed through the gate, the Lamashu was perpetually in motion. It was always advancing, always watching, never at rest. It created a breathtaking illusion of life and constant readiness, a stone guardian that seemed capable of stepping off its plinth at any moment to defend the kingdom it was sworn to protect. Ultimately, the Lamashu stands as a pinnacle of how ancient civilizations used stone beasts. It was not an either-or proposition. It was simultaneously a spiritual talisman, a political billboard, a feat of artistic engineering, and a psychological tool. It served the gods by guarding against chaos, it served the king by proclaiming his glory, and it served the common people by offering a tangible sense of security in a dangerous and unpredictable world. In the volatile empires of Mesopotamia, the Lamashu was the perfect symbol of power, a power that was divine, royal, eternal, and walking forever forward. Our journey now takes us to one of the most remote places on Earth, a tiny volcanic speck in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Here, separated from the rest of the world by thousands of miles of open water, a unique society embarked on one of humanity's most audacious and enigmatic sculptural projects. The Moai of Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, are instantly recognizable. Nearly 1,000 of these towering figures dot the landscape, their oversized, stern-faced heads and elongated bodies gazing inland with an almost palpable intensity. For too long, they were misunderstood by the outside world as mere monuments, or worse, as the foolish extravagance of a civilization that collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. But we now understand they were so much more. These were not idle statues, they were the deified ancestors of the island's clans, rendered in permanent stone to actively watch over and nurture their living descendants. The spiritual concept at the heart of the Moai is mana, a form of supernatural power and prestige. The Rapa Nui people believed that a person's mana did not dissipate after death, but could be harnessed and channeled for the benefit of the community. This is where the Moai and their ceremonial platforms, called ahu, become a single, integrated ritual machine. The ahu were not simple bases. They were often also burial vaults for the clan's elite. The Moai were carved from compressed volcanic ash or tuff from the quarry at Rono-Roroku, and then erected on the ahu with their backs to the sea, their watchful eyes turned toward the villages and farmland. In this position, they acted as conduits. They were believed to draw upon the spiritual energy, the mana, of the ancestors they represented and project it outwards, blessing the living with fertility for their crops, protection from harm, and overall prosperity. The statue was a permanent, active link between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits, but the purpose of these stone giants may have been even more multifaceted. Recent archaeological studies have revealed fascinating details about the placement of the ahu platforms themselves. Many of these structures are precisely aligned with celestial events. During the summer and winter solstices, the sun rises and sets at specific points on the horizon as viewed from these platforms. This was almost certainly not a coincidence. In an isolated society utterly dependent on agriculture for survival, a reliable calendar was a matter of life and death. Knowing precisely when to plant and when to harvest was critical. The Ahu, with their rows of silent Moai guardians, likely served as colossal astronomical markers. The same ancestors who provided spiritual fertility also provided the practical, celestial knowledge needed to ensure that fertility resulted in a bountiful yield. This dual function beautifully illustrates how the sacred and the practical were seamlessly woven together in the Rapa Nui worldview. This leads us to the question that has captivated explorers and scientists for centuries. How did they do it? How did a society without metal, without wheels, and without draft animals move these multi-ton monoliths, some weighing over 80 tons, across miles of rugged, rolling terrain? The prevailing theory, supported by experimental archaeology and oral histories, points to a breathtaking feat of coordinated human effort. The most widely accepted method involved a technique called walking the statues. Using a system of ropes and a carefully coordinated team of people, the Moai were rocked back and forth, pivoting on its base with each pull, effectively making it walk forward in a slow, swaying gait across the landscape. This was not the work of slaves under a whip, but almost certainly a communal endeavor that involved the entire clan. The act of moving a Moai was likely a ritual in itself, a powerful ceremony that reinforced social bonds, shared purpose, and collective identity. The successful transportation and erection of a Moai was a massive source of mana for the entire community, a tangible demonstration of their unity and strength. The story of the Moai is ultimately a profound lesson in environmental and cultural adaptation. These stone beasts were not a cause of collapse but a brilliant, if incredibly resource-intensive, response to the challenges of isolation. On an island with limited resources and no outside contact, the Rapa Nui people invested their energy into a system that reinforced social cohesion, managed spiritual beliefs, and even tracked time. They turned their ancestors into the island's most prominent and powerful landmarks. The Moai stand as a powerful testament to a universal human impulse, the desire to carve our beliefs, our memories, and our very identity into the landscape, creating a permanent record in stone that shouts across the centuries, "We were here and we mattered." Leaving behind the monolithic guardians of the Pacific, we arrive in the sun-drenched world of ancient Greece, a civilization celebrated for its pursuit of reason, order, and ideal beauty. Yet, even here, in the birthplace of philosophy and democracy, we find that stone beasts held a powerful and complex place in the cultural imagination. But the Greek approach was strikingly different. Rather than creating colossal, immovable sentinels, Greek artisans often sculpted their mythical creatures on a more human scale, capturing them in moments of ferocious, dynamic struggle. A perfect example is the legendary chimera, a terrifying hybrid of lion, goat, and serpent, famously slain by the hero Bellerophon riding the winged horse Pegasus. A stunning bronze sculpture of this very scene, recovered from the sea near Italy, shows the beast in a violent snarl, its goat head lunging from its back even as the lion's body recoils from a fatal wound. This was not created to stand guard at a city gate. Its purpose was far more nuanced, serving as a profound moral and religious lesson cast in metal and stone. These sculptures of monstrous beings like the chimera, the gorgon, or the Sphinx were frequently dedicated as votive offerings in great pan-Hellenic sanctuaries like Delphi or Olympia. A wealthy individual or a victorious city-state might commission such a piece to give thanks to a god, most often Apollo or Athena, for a success in battle or a safe journey. But the choice of subject was deeply symbolic. By offering a depiction of a vanquished monster, the donor was making a powerful statement about the triumph of civilization of Greek logos, or reasoned order, over the forces of chaos, barbarism, and ignorance that the monster represented. It was an act of piety that also functioned as a boast, aligning the donor's own achievements with the heroic deeds of myth. Placed within a sacred precinct, these works were constant reminders to all pilgrims of the divine favor that supported Greek ideals and the terrible fate that awaited those who challenged them. This function as a warning was absolutely central, particularly against the sin of hubris, the overweening pride that leads a mortal to defy the gods. The myth of Bellerophon himself is a classic cautionary tale. After his glorious victory over the chimera, his pride grew so great that he attempted to fly Pegasus to Mount Olympus to join the gods, only to be thrown back to earth by Zeus, ending his life in misery and obscurity. Therefore, a sculpture of the chimera was never just a celebration of a hero's strength. It was a packaged narrative that contained its own moral. The initial victory was glorious, but the potential for a catastrophic fall due to arrogance was always present. In public spaces like the Athenian Agora, images of these beasts served to inspire civic virtue by illustrating the kinds of threats, both external and internal, that a just and orderly polis must constantly guard against. Their use extended into the deeply personal realm of funerary art as well. Sculptures of sphinxes or other protective creatures were often placed in cemeteries atop grave markers. Here, their roles shifted from a warning to the living to a guardian for the deceased. They were apotropaic sentinels for the dead, believed to ward off evil spirits and desecration, ensuring the peaceful rest of the soul on its journey to the underworld. This demonstrates the incredible versatility of the Greek stone beast. The same essential form, a mythical hybrid creature, could serve as a religious offering, a public moral lesson, and a private protector, its meaning fluidly changing with its context. What makes these sculptures so captivating, even beyond their symbolic weight, is the breathtaking artistry with which they were rendered. The Greek commitment to ideal form applied even to the monstrous. The chimera from Arezzo is not a messy, chaotic pile of parts. It is a masterclass in balance, composition, and anatomical accuracy, even as it depicts a creature that could never exist. The muscles of the lion are taut and realistic. The expression of the goat head is one of pained fury, and the serpentine tail is elegantly coiled. This reflects the core Greek belief that true beauty lay in harmonious proportion and technical excellence, principles that could be applied to a perfect human form just as effectively as to a perfect monster. The chaos was in the concept, but the execution was a testament to supreme order. In this way, the Greek sculptors taught that even the most terrifying aspects of the world could be understood, contained, and ultimately overcome through reason, courage, and art. From the sun-baked temples of Greece, we now set sail for the frigid, treacherous waters of the North Atlantic, where the Vikings mastered the sea not just through shipbuilding skill, but through spiritual ingenuity. Their greatest vessels were more than just wooden constructions. They were living entities, and their most defining feature was the beast that led the way. The dragon prow, often carved from oak or sometimes even stone, was the soul of the ship. This was not a simple figurehead added for intimidation, though it certainly did that. It was a removable, potent talisman, a sacred object believed to be infused with protective magic for the perilous journey ahead. Imagine the sight of one of these longships emerging from the coastal fog, its carved serpent head rising high above the waterline, jaws agape as if ready to breathe frost and fire. For coastal villages, this was the stuff of nightmares, a psychological weapon that announced the arrival of warriors from the north. But for the crew aboard, that same fearsome visage was a source of profound comfort and spiritual security. The Norse worldview was filled with invisible threats, not just enemy fleets, but malevolent sea spirits, tempests summoned by angry gods, and the ever-present danger of the unknown that lay beyond the horizon. The dragon prow was their first line of defense. It was believed to possess the power to see these hidden dangers and ward them off, its fierce appearance scaring away evil spirits that might otherwise conjure a storm or lead the ship astray into treacherous waters. It was an appeal to the gods like Njord, ruler of the sea winds, or Aegir, the giant who personified the ocean itself, a symbolic offering asking for safe passage across their unpredictable domain. This deep belief in the prow's animating spirit is perfectly illustrated by a fascinating practice recorded in the Icelandic sagas. When a Viking longship was returning home or approaching a friendly shore, the crew would often cover the dragon head or even remove it entirely. The reasoning was brilliantly pragmatic. They feared that the powerful protective magic of the beast, so vital on the open ocean, might be too strong, too aggressive for the settled lands. It could inadvertently offend the local land spirits or landvitir who guarded farms and communities. Provoking these spirits could bring bad luck, poor harvests, or other misfortunes to their own people. This careful ritual shows they didn't view the carving as a passive decoration, but as a functional, almost living entity whose power needed to be managed and respected based on the context, a breathtaking blend of practical seamanship and deep spiritual belief. The significance of these carved beasts extended beyond the voyage of a lifetime and into the journey beyond life itself. The most stunning archaeological evidence of this comes from ship burials, like the magnificent Oseberg ship found in Norway. Here, an entire vessel was used as a burial chamber for a high-status woman, and its elaborate carvings, including a spiraling serpent head post, were interred with her. In this funerary context, the ship was no longer a vessel for earthly exploration, but a conveyance for the soul's final voyage to the afterlife, to realms like Valhalla or Helheim. The dragon prow, in this sacred setting, transformed from a protector against sea storms into a guardian against the perils of the underworld, a guide ensuring the deceased navigated the spiritual waters safely to their final destination. It was a symbol of transition, of a journey that did not end with death. Ultimately, the Norse dragon prows stand as a powerful testament to the Vikings' world-ending practicality. They were a people who could calculate currents, build revolutionary hull designs, and navigate by the stars, yet they fully acknowledged the unseen forces that governed their fate. The dragon head was the perfect fusion of these two worlds. It was a marvel of woodworking and maritime innovation, yes, but it was also a sacred object, a psychological tool, and a cultural emblem. It allowed them to face the immense, terrifying power of the ocean, not just with cold skill, but with a heated heart full of myth, magic, and the unwavering belief that they had a beast on their side. From the fierce dragon prows of the North Seas, we now journey to the sun-scorched temple complexes of South and Southeast Asia, where a different kind of hybrid guardian stands watch, one that embodies not just protection, but a profound philosophical ideal. Carved from sandstone or granite at the entrance to magnificent temples like Angkor Wat, or those in the ancient Khmer and Champa kingdoms, the Gajasimha presents a breathtaking synthesis of two of the most revered creatures in the Asian bestiary. This is no monster of chaos to be slain, but a deliberate and elegant fusion, the massive, wise head of an elephant seamlessly joined to the powerful, muscular body of a lion. Every aspect of its design is a carefully considered symbol, a stone-carved lesson in balance and divine power meant to be understood by every devotee who passed beneath its gaze. The genius of the Gajasimha lies in its symbolic DNA. It is a creature of compounded virtues where the sum is far greater than its parts. the elephant or Gaja, represents a suite of deeply admired qualities in Hindu and Buddhist thought. It is a symbol of wisdom, patience, memory, and majestic stability. It is associated with rainfall, fertility, and the very foundations of the earth, often linked to the deity Indra. The lion or Simha, on the other hand, is the ultimate emblem of raw power, courage, sovereignty, and ferocity. It is the king of beasts, an animal so mighty it is often the chosen mount or vahana of great goddesses like Durga. By merging these two beings, the Gajasimha becomes the ultimate guardian, a sentinel that possesses not only the strength to physically ward off evil, but the wisdom to discern true threats from mere distractions. It is the perfect combination of brute force and intelligent application, a philosophical concept made stunningly visible in stone. This union is deeply tied to the preserver god, Vishnu. In many traditions, the Gajasimha is seen as a manifestation of Vishnu's power or is directly associated with him. Vishnu's role in the Hindu trinity is to maintain cosmic order, to protect Dharma, and to remove obstacles that threaten the balance of the universe. The Gajasimha, stationed at the temple gateway, the threshold between the mundane world and the sacred realm of the gods, acts as Vishnu's agent. Its very presence is a promise that obstacles, both spiritual and worldly, will be cleared away for the sincere worshipper who enters with a pure heart. It doesn't just block negative forces, it actively facilitates the devotee's spiritual progress, using its lion's strength to tear down barriers and its elephant's wisdom to guide the way forward. The creation of a Gajasimha was never a task left to an artisan's individual creativity. It was a sacred science governed by strict iconometric rules detailed in ancient Sanskrit texts known as the Shilpa Shastras. These manuals provided precise mathematical formulas for every single dimension of the sculpture, the ratio of the head to the body, the curvature of the trunk, the placement of the eyes, the width of the lion's haunches. This rigorous standardization was not about stifling art, but about ensuring the spiritual efficacy of the final object. It was believed that only a sculpture created according to these divine proportions could properly house the spiritual energy or presence it was intended to embody. The artisan was not merely a craftsman but a ritual specialist, and the act of carving was itself a form of worship, a meditation that transformed a block of stone into a consecrated vessel of divine power. This makes each Gajasimha so much more than a statue. It is a ritual object, an active participant in the spiritual life of the temple. Positioned on either side of a towering Gopuram gate or at the base of a long causeway leading to the inner sanctum, the Gajasimha's primary function was to demarcate space. Its imposing form visually and energetically marked the transition from the profane outer world to the sacred inner world. For a weary pilgrim arriving after a long journey, the sight of these magnificent beasts would instantly inspire a shift in consciousness, a feeling of awe, reverence, and devotion. They were the first greeters and the final guardians, setting the tone for the entire spiritual experience within. They taught a silent lesson even before a single hymn was chanted or a single offering was made. That true power is a balance of strength and wisdom, and that the path to the divine requires both the courage to overcome one's inner demons and the sagacity to understand the nature of the universe itself. In the Gajasimha, we see how a stone beast can become a perfect, accessible teacher, its lesson encoded not in text but in form, waiting for centuries for anyone to stop and truly see. Now, we venture into a world far removed from the regal guardians and mythical hybrids we've explored so far, to a tradition that is startlingly direct, unabashedly visceral, and shrouded in enduring mystery. Tucked away on the stonework of medieval churches and castles across Ireland, Britain, and parts of continental Europe, you might find a carving that seems completely out of place. It depicts a naked, often skeletal-looking female figure, crouching and pulling apart her vulva in an exaggerated, confrontational display. This is the Sheela na gig, and to the modern eye, it can appear shocking, even grotesque. But to dismiss it as such is to miss its profound purpose entirely. These enigmatic figures were not crude jokes or pagan obscenities defacing Christian buildings. They were powerful, apotropaic guardians, using the raw, shocking power of the human body to ward off evil, death, and misfortune. The very essence of the Sheela na gig lies in its apotropaic function, the ancient practice of using symbols to avert evil. In a time when people believed deeply in invisible malevolent forces, demons, spirits of disease, the evil eye, the primary defense was often to distract, confuse, or frighten them away. The Sheela's shocking display was a form of spiritual warfare, a calculated act of symbolic shock and awe. The thinking was that evil, much like a human, would be so stunned, so bewildered or repulsed by this brazen image that it would be diverted from its intended target. By placing these figures above doorways, windows, and other vulnerable points of entry, communities believed they were creating a powerful spiritual barrier. The Sheela was the ultimate guardian, using the most primal imagery imaginable to protect the building and everyone inside from harm. It was a folkloric security system carved in stone for all eternity. This leads to the great debate that has captivated historians and folklorists for decades. Where did she come from? The theories are fascinatingly divided, reflecting the complex layers of European cultural history. One compelling school of thought traces her origins back to pre-Christian Celtic mother goddesses or fertility figures. In this view, the Sheela is a survival, a stubborn remnant of an ancient earth-based religion that venerated the female body not as something shameful, but as the ultimate source of life, creation, and regenerative power. Her exaggerated genitalia, rather than being lewd, symbolized the sacred portal of birth and the enduring cycle of life and death. When Christianity spread, rather than eradicate these deep-seated beliefs, it may have co-opted and reinterpreted them, placing the old goddess in a new context as a guardian of the new god's house. Another, quite different interpretation positions the Sheela as a purely Christian invention, a stark memento mori, and a warning against the sins of the flesh. In this reading, her often emaciated, grimacing form is not a celebration of life but a condemnation of worldly desires. She serves as a terrifying reminder of the mortality of the body and the dangers of lust, her gesture meant to inspire not fascination but revulsion and pious contemplation. She was a moral lesson carved in stone, reminding the faithful entering the church to leave their sinful thoughts outside. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, a complex fusion of older, pre-Christian symbolic practices with the newer moral framework of medieval Christianity. The Sheela na gig is a palimpsest, a figure whose original meaning was perhaps overwritten but never fully erased, resulting in a powerful and ambiguous symbol that could hold multiple, even contradictory, meanings for different people. Despite their protective role, many Sheela na gig figures bear the scars of later attempts to destroy or deface them, often during periods of religious reformation or Victorian-era sensibilities when their explicit nature was deemed inappropriate and embarrassing. Their survival, often hidden away or rediscovered during renovations, is a testament to their enduring power and significance. They force us to expand our definition of a stone beast. A beast does not need fangs, claws, or wings to be formidable. The Sheela na gig is a beast of symbolism, a confrontation, a challenge. She challenges our modern notions of propriety. challenges the simplistic narrative of medieval art as purely pious, and most of all, she challenges evil itself with the most unexpected weapon imaginable. She represents the raw, folk-level understanding of protection, a belief that sometimes, to ward off darkness, you must confront it with something equally raw, powerful, and unabashedly alive. Crossing from the old world to the new, we arrive at the heart of the Aztec Empire, where stone beasts were not merely protectors or teachers but active, burning instruments of cosmic order. Here, the serpent takes on a form of pure elemental force, carved into the walls of the great temple, Templo Maya, in the capital city of Tenochtitlan. You would have encountered the Zucotal, or the fire serpent. Its name itself is a key to its power, combining Zucotal, which can mean both year and turquoise, a stone of fire and sacrifice, with Cotal, meaning serpent. This was no ordinary snake. It was a being of blazing energy, often depicted with a segmented body resembling a cactus or a torch, its head sharp and stylized with flames erupting from its snout. To see it was to witness the raw, untamed power of the sun itself, harnessed into a single, coiled form of stone. The Zucotal's identity was multifaceted, deeply woven into the Aztec understanding of the natural world and their precarious place within it. Most fundamentally, it was the fierce embodiment of the dry season, that critical, harsh period of the year when the skies remained clear and the sun beat down relentlessly. For an agricultural society whose survival was tied to the maize crop, this time was both a necessity and a threat. The Zucotal represented that duality. It was the vital, purifying heat that allowed for harvest, but it was also the potential for devastating drought and famine if not properly appeased. It was the weapon of the sun, a celestial tool that could both give life and take it away. This connection to the sun made it the sacred avatar and the chosen weapon of Huitzilopochtli, the patron god of the Aztecs, a deity of war and the sun who required constant nourishment through sacrifice to continue his daily battle across the sky and hold the forces of darkness at bay. This is where the Zucotal transitions from a symbolic representation to a direct, hands-on participant in the most vital state rituals. These stone carvings were not placed passively for admiration. They were functional components of the temple's sacred machinery. Archaeologists believe that the open jaws or the coiled bodies of these fire serpents served as holders or repositories for the most sacred of objects. Most significantly, they likely held the tekkatal, the sacrificial knife used in heart extraction rituals. Imagine the profound symbolism, the blazing weapon of the sun god, carved in stone, physically cradling the blade that would offer the lifeblood needed to fuel the sun's journey. In other contexts, it may have held offerings of precious objects, food, or even the bloodied paper strips soaked in sacrifice. The Zucotal was the conduit. It was the means by which human effort, the ultimate offering of a life, was transferred to the divine realm to ensure the continued cycle of the seasons, the success of the military, and the very stability of the cosmos. Every aspect of its design communicated absolute power. The segmented, articulated body spoke of the passing of time, of the cyclical nature of the years that the Aztecs tracked with such precision in their famous calendar. The fiery elements carved along its length were a constant visual reminder of its destructive and purifying potential. For the common citizen viewing these reliefs, the Zucotal was a fearsome reminder of the gods' power over their daily lives. For the visiting dignitary or conquered enemy, it was a stark symbol of the emperor's divine mandate. The ruler was the representative of Huitzilopochtli on earth, and the Zucotal was his divine emblem. Its presence on state architecture proclaimed that the emperor commanded not just armies, but the very forces of nature. To defy him was to defy the sun itself, an act of cosmic treason that would invite not only military defeat but also ecological collapse. The Zucotal stands as a masterful example of ideological engineering, a stone beast that brilliantly encapsulated a complete worldview tying together agriculture, warfare, astronomy, and imperial authority into one terrifying, elegant, and utterly essential form. Leaving behind the fierce, elemental power of the Aztec Zucotal, we now travel to the serene and meticulously ordered world of Japan's Shinto shrines. Here, guarding the entrance to these sacred spaces, you will encounter a pair of stone sentinels that are at once familiar and utterly unique. These are the komainu, often translated as lion dogs, and their silent, paired presence is a masterclass in spiritual symbolism and cultural adaptation. While they share a distant ancestry with the Chinese guardian lions we met earlier, the komainu have evolved over centuries into something distinctly Japanese, reflecting a deep and nuanced relationship with the sacred that permeates every aspect of their design and placement. The first thing you notice is that they are always a pair, and this duality is the key to unlocking their meaning. They are not identical twins but a matched set, a harmonious duo representing the alpha and omega of all existence. One statue, always positioned on the right side as you face the shrine, has its mouth wide open, forming the sound A, which is the first character of the Japanese alphabet. Its partner on the left has its mouth firmly closed, forming the sound or un, which is the last character. Together, they create the sacred syllable un, a concept derived from Sanskrit that represents the birth and death of all things, the beginning and the end of the universe, and all the myriad possibilities in between. This isn't just a clever phonetic trick. It is a profound philosophical statement carved in stone. It signifies that the entire cosmic cycle is present and protected within the shrine grounds, and that passing between these guardians means moving from the profane world into a space where the fundamental truths of existence are acknowledged and honored. Their primary role is one of spiritual hygiene. In Shinto, the concept of purity is paramount. The world is filled with kegare, a form of spiritual pollution or impurity that can accumulate through contact with death, disease, or even ordinary negative emotions. The kami, the sacred spirits worshipped in Shinto, are attracted to purity and repelled by kegare. The komainu act as the first line of defense against these impurities. They are not merely decorative, they are active participants in the purification process. Their fierce expressions and powerful stances are believed to deter malevolent influences and evil spirits, ensuring that only those with respectful intentions enter the sacred space beyond. They effectively filter the spiritual energy of all who approach, safeguarding the purity of the shrine and the kami within. The evolution of their design is a fascinating story of cultural exchange and national identity. The idea of guardian lions entered Japan via the Korean peninsula and China, most likely alongside the introduction of Buddhism in the 6th century. The earliest examples found in ancient temple compounds are very similar to their continental cousins, but as time passed, Japanese artisans began to reinterpret the form. The lions became more canine-like, their features softening into a more approachable, sometimes almost whimsical demeanor. They developed a characteristic curled mane and a more compact, sturdy posture. This shift wasn't just an artistic preference, it reflected the integration of the figures into the native Shinto belief system, where the relationship with kami is often more intimate and less intimidating than the relationship with distant imperial gods. The komainu became uniquely Japanese, a perfect fusion of imported form and local spirit. Beyond their mouths, the komainu are often adorned with other symbolic accessories that deepen their meaning. Some hold a sacred jewel or tama, representing the embodiment of truth and spiritual power. Others might be shown resting a paw on a cub, symbolizing the protection of the next generation, or holding a scroll representing wisdom and sacred knowledge. These details transform each pair from generic guardians into specific icons with layered meanings, tailored to the particular kami of the shrine or the wishes of the community that commissioned them. They serve as intermediaries. Their stone forms a constant, reassuring presence that facilitates the connection between the human worshipper and the divine spirit, a silent promise that the space beyond is clean, protected, and ready for communion. High in the thin air of the Andes, where the sky feels close enough to touch, the Inca Empire carved its dominion into the very bones of the mountains. Theirs was a world of breathtaking scale and profound order, and their stone beasts were not solitary monuments but integral threads woven into the fabric of their cities. The puma or puma was the ultimate embodiment of earthly power, the ruler of the terrestrial realm that connected the heavens above with the underworld below. To find an Inca puma sculpture, you often have to change your entire perspective. At the mighty fortress of Sacsayhuaman, which overlooks the capital city of Cusco, you won't find a free-standing statue of a crouching cat. Instead, you must look at the architecture itself. The entire complex, when viewed from above, is believed to be laid out in the shape of a giant puma, with the zigzagging walls representing its teeth. This was architecture as a beast, a literal reshaping of the landscape into a permanent symbol of Inca strength and protection. This integration was a deliberate act of political and spiritual assertion. The Incas were master assimilators, conquering a vast array of cultures across Western South America. Imposing their symbolic language onto the land was a powerful way to cement control and demonstrate the new cosmic order. By building a puma-shaped fortress that loomed over the sacred valley, they were making an undeniable statement. The power of the Sapa Inca, who was believed to be a direct descendant of the sun god Inti, was now the dominant protecting force in the region. The puma was the guardian of this new order. Sculptures and carvings of the creature were placed at strategic points, city gates, temple entrances like the Coricancha, or along important roads, to ward off both physical enemies and malevolent spirits. They were the silent, stone enforcers of the Inca peace, their very presence a constant reminder of the empire's watchful eye and unassailable authority. But the Inca relationship with the puma extended far beyond simple metaphors of strength. Theirs was a deeply astronomical culture, and their stone beasts served as precise celestial calculators. The Incas observed the sun's journey with meticulous care, as its movements dictated the agricultural cycles that sustained their empire. Many puma sculptures and the structures they adorned were carefully aligned with solar events. A specific carving might be positioned so that the first light of the dawn summer solstice struck a particular spot, illuminating a symbol or casting a significant shadow. These alignments transformed the puma from a static guardian into a dynamic participant in the cosmic cycle. It wasn't just protecting the city, it was helping to mark the time for planting, for harvest, and for the great religious festivals that honored the gods. This fusion of the terrestrial and the celestial reinforced the Inca worldview, where the divine was not a separate realm but an active force interwoven with daily life, readable through the language of stone and sunlight. The true genius of these creations, however, lies in the almost unimaginable skill with which they were made. The stonework at Sacsayhuaman is a marvel that continues to baffle engineers today. The Incas constructed these massive walls using a technique called ashlar masonry, fitting together enormous, irregularly shaped blocks of limestone, some weighing over 100 tons, without a single drop of mortar. The joints between these stones are so perfectly tight that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. This wasn't just for show. This precision was a revolutionary form of earthquake engineering. During the frequent tremors that shake the Andes, the stones in these walls are designed to dance, to shift and settle without collapsing, a feat that has allowed them to stand for centuries. The creation of a puma sculpture integrated into such a wall was therefore a demonstration of ultimate mastery. It showed that the Inca stonemasons could not only move and shape colossal rocks with nothing but stone tools and bronze chisels, but they could also imbue this incredible engineering with profound symbolic meaning. The puma was strength, but the wall it was part of was resilience, permanence, and a technological prowess that bordered on the magical. In the Inca puma, we see the complete convergence of form, function, and faith, a stone beast that was a guardian, a calendar, and a testament to human ingenuity, all carved into the living rock of the mountains it was sworn to protect. Now we venture into the heart of the Persian Empire, a realm of immense power and sophisticated courtly culture, where the stone beast takes on a uniquely psychological and terrifying form. Unlike the colossal, free-standing guardians of Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Persian manticore often made its presence known through intricate stone reliefs adorning the walls of royal palaces like Persepolis. This creature was a masterpiece of nightmare fuel, a hybrid designed for maximum impact. It combined the intelligence and authority of a human head, the raw, predatory power of a lion's body, and the venomous, insidious threat of a scorpion's tail. This was not a beast meant to guard against supernatural evil. Its primary audience was very much human. It was a calculated instrument of psychological dominance, a symbol carved in stone to communicate the absolute and terrifying power of the Persian king to anyone fortunate or unfortunate enough to be granted an audience. Our knowledge of the manticore comes from a fascinating cross-cultural exchange. The Greek historian Ctesias, who served as a physician in the Persian court of Artaxerxes II, encountered descriptions or perhaps even images of this creature and brought the tale back to Greece. His accounts, though sometimes dismissed as fanciful, describe a beast with a terrifyingly specific method of hunting. It was said to devour its prey whole, leaving no trace behind. This gruesome detail was not just a scary story, it was a perfect metaphor for the absolute, consuming power of the Persian monarchy. An enemy of the king wouldn't just be defeated, they would be utterly erased, swallowed whole by the insatiable machinery of the empire. The manticore was the embodiment of this concept, a constant visual reminder that defiance was not just futile, but could result in complete and total annihilation. The strategic placement of these reliefs was a deliberate act of royal theater. Imagine a foreign ambassador or a conquered chieftain being led through the grand halls of the Apadana. Their path would be lined with images of the king triumphing over mythical beasts and receiving tribute from every corner of the empire. And among these scenes, the manticore would stare out, often positioned near the royal throne itself or flanking major gateways. This was the last thing a visitor would see before laying eyes on the king. The message was unmistakable. The man you are about to approach does not merely command armies, he commands monsters. He possesses the intelligence of a man, the strength of a lion, and the deadly, unforgiving sting of a scorpion. Any threat against him would be met with a force that was not only overwhelming but also merciless and absolute. It was a masterclass in intimidation, designed to instill a sense of awe and dread that would ensure compliance long before a single soldier was ever called. This fluid blending of human, animal, and divine forms was deeply rooted in Persian cosmology, particularly Zoroastrian thought. Their worldview was not one of strict separations but of interconnected realms and energies. Divine beings or yazatas often had animal associations, and the king was seen as their representative on earth, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. The manticore, in its very hybrid nature, reflected this cosmological fluidity. It was a tangible representation of the king's own composite nature, his human reason, his animalistic power, and his divine right to rule. It communicated that his authority was not just political, but was woven into the very fabric of the universe, a natural and terrifying force as inevitable as a predator's hunger or a scorpion's sting. In the Manticore, the Persian Empire demonstrated a profound understanding of power's theater, using a creature of pure imagination, carved in stone, to achieve very real and tangible effects on the minds of all who entered its dominion. While many of the stone beasts we've explored were carved by powerful, centralized empires, our next guardian emerges from a profoundly different tradition, one of deep spiritual connection to the land itself, passed down through an unbroken chain of oral history for over 60,000 years. We travel now to the vast, ancient continent of Australia, where the very concept of a beast transforms into something far more fluid and fundamental. Here, the most powerful being is the rainbow serpent, a creator deity known by many names across hundreds of distinct Aboriginal nations: Ungud in the Kimberley, Wolunqua among the Warramunga, or Julan Gull in Arnhem Land. Representations of this being are not confined to a single, monumental statue. Instead, they are found in vibrant rock art paintings, in intricate stone arrangements on the earth, and in the very shape of the landscape itself. To view these as simple illustrations of a story is to miss their true function entirely. They are, in fact, multidimensional maps, sacred charts that encode the laws of creation, the location of vital water sources, and the moral codes that bind a community together. The rainbow serpent is not a monster to be feared, but the ultimate source of life. In the dream time, the sacred era of creation, this immense being moved across the featureless earth, its powerful body carving out the riverbeds, valleys, and gorges as it traveled. Where it rested, it created waterholes and springs, the critical sources of life in our often arid land. Its shedding of skin brought forth the green vegetation, and its movements shaped the very mountains and deserts. This makes the serpent inextricably linked to the two most vital elements for survival: water and fertility. The stone arrangements and rock art sites that depict it are therefore not random. They are most often found at these very waterholes or along the paths it once traveled. These sites became living ceremonial grounds where rituals were performed by elders to ensure the serpent's continued favor, to call for the life-giving rains, to guarantee the abundance of plants and animals, and to maintain the delicate environmental balance that sustained the people. The stone effigy was the focal point for this communication, a place where the human and dreamtime worlds intersected. This role as a spiritual nexus is coupled with a breathtakingly practical one. In a landscape without written maps, this knowledge had to be etched into memory and into the land. The paths carved by the rainbow serpent became the foundation for the songlines, or dreaming tracks, intricate navigational routes that crisscross the entire continent. A songline is a sequence of landmarks, each with its own story, song, and ceremony. A stone arrangement depicting the serpent might mark a crucial turning point, a water source, or a place where certain foods could be found. An elder, by knowing the song associated with that specific serpent stone, could navigate across hundreds of miles of unfamiliar territory, recalling the direction to the next site and the resources available there. The stone beast was therefore a spiritual compass and a geographical waypoint, its meaning preserved and transmitted through performance and song. Perhaps the most profound role of these representations was as educational tools. The Aboriginal rainbow serpent is a being of immense moral complexity. Its stories teach about the consequences of breaking tribal law, the importance of sharing resources, and the proper way to care for country. Elders used the rock art and stone arrangements as a teaching canvas, a visual aid to accompany the songs and stories told to the younger generations. A specific painting might illustrate a story about what happens when someone pollutes a waterhole, showing the serpent's displeasure through drought or flood. In this way, the stone beast became a living library. It held not just a story, but the accumulated ecological knowledge, historical wisdom, and legal framework of a culture. It was a durable, unchanging reference point in an oral tradition, ensuring that the laws for survival and social harmony were passed down accurately for millennia. In the rainbow serpent, we see the ultimate expression of a stone beast as an integral part of a living culture. It is not a relic of a forgotten past, but a continuous, active participant in the present. It functions as a creator myth, a water diviner, a legal textbook, a moral parable, and a navigational chart, all woven into a single, powerful concept made visible through art and stone. It demonstrates that the most enduring sculptures are not those that simply impose human will upon the landscape, but those that listen to it, that interpret its rhythms, and that serve as a perpetual reminder of our sacred duty to protect it. Deep within the humid, verdant heart of the Maya world, where kings drew their power from the very fabric of the cosmos, a different kind of stone beast emerges, one not of protection or intimidation, but of revelation. Unlike the solid, earthly guardians we've seen before, the Maya vision serpent is a creature of smoke, blood, and spirit, captured at the very moment of its miraculous birth into our world. You will find it carved on towering stone slabs called stelae, most often coiled and surging from the head of a royal figure, its gaping jaws disgorging a god or a long-dead ancestor. To the modern eye, it might look like a fantastical special effect, a dramatic artistic flourish, but for the Maya, this was neither fantasy nor mere decoration. It was a meticulously documented record of a successful ritual, a receipt from the other side proving that the veil between worlds had been torn open and that divine counsel had been received. The vision serpent was the ultimate interactive portal, a smoking gun of supernatural contact made permanently, publicly visible in stone. The birth of this serpentine portal was not a passive event. It was the hard-won climax of an intense, often painful, ritual known as bloodletting. Maya rulers, both men and women, would perform these acts of extreme piety to pierce the veil of reality. They might draw a cord studded with obsidian shards through their tongue, or use a stingray spine to pierce their own flesh, collecting the precious blood on strips of paper, which were then burned in ceremonial braziers. The act was one of profound obligation and sacrifice, a payment of life force to the gods in exchange for their presence and guidance. As the blood-soaked paper smoldered and the smoke curled upwards, the participants, likely in an altered state from blood loss, pain, and perhaps ritual enemas, would enter a trance. It was from within this sacred smoke that the vision serpent was believed to materialize, a writhing, ethereal form conjured by the ruler's own sacrifice and unwavering faith. The serpent did not simply appear, it was summoned, its existence a direct and powerful response to human devotion. Once this spiritual conduit had been established, its purpose became clear. The gaping maw of the serpent served as a literal doorway. From its mouth would emerge a specific deity, perhaps the rain god Chok, needed to bless the crops, or the maize god, symbolizing renewal and sustenance. In other instances, a revered ancestor, a founder of the royal lineage, would appear, their wizened face peering out from the serpent's jaws. This was the climax of the ritual, direct face-to-face communication with the other world. The king could receive prophecies about an upcoming battle, confirm the legitimacy of his rule, or secure blessings for his people. The vision serpent was the medium, the spiritual telephone line that made this conversation possible. Its appearance on a stela was the king's way of proving to his subjects that he had done his job. He had suffered for them, he had successfully bridged the gap between the human and the divine, and he had returned with the authority and the knowledge to lead them wisely. It was the ultimate source of his political legitimacy, carved in stone for all to see. The complexity of the Maya world view is etched into every scale of these sculptures. They did not believe in a simple heaven and hell, but in a vast, multi-layered universe, often conceptualized as 13 levels in the heavens and 9 in the underworld. The vision serpent was the vehicle that connected them all. Its sinuous, coiling body represented its ability to move freely between these realms, navigating the cosmic geography to fetch a specific god or ancestor from their particular layer of existence. The serpent itself was likely seen as a manifestation of the Milky Way, which the Maya visualized as a great celestial snake, further cementing its role as a central axis of the cosmos. This wasn't just a pretty symbol, it was a sophisticated cosmological map depicting the ruler at the very center of a functioning, structured universe, which he alone had the power and the duty to communicate with. What makes the Maya vision serpent truly unique among our stone beasts is its role as a combined historical document. These carvings are often surrounded by and filled with intricate hieroglyphic texts. These aren't generic prayers, they are specific, dated accounts. The glyphs record the exact date of the ritual, the name of the ruler who performed it, the names of the ancestors or gods who appeared, and the nature of the prophecy or message received. A single sculpture could also depict multiple events across time, showing the ruler at different ages or commemorating several successful rituals. This transforms the vision serpent from a purely ritual object into a hybrid masterpiece of art, scripture, and history. It is a stela, a religious icon, and a history book, all fused into one. It served to immortalize not just the mythical event, but the precise historical context in which it occurred, creating a permanent public record that reinforced the dynasty's divine right to rule for generations to come. In the vision serpent, we see the ultimate expression of a stone beast as an active, dynamic participant in the most crucial aspects of life. It was not a static guardian meant to watch for eternity, but a frozen moment of intense spiritual interaction. It required human action to be born, served a specific communicative function, and then was memorialized to shape political reality. It shows us that for the Maya, the supernatural was not a distant abstraction but an accessible, responsive force, and that the most powerful leaders were those who could reliably open a doorway to it, using their own blood as the key and a serpent of smoke and vision as their guide. From the mystical portals of the Maya, we now journey to the highlands of Ethiopia, where a stone beast embodies not just spiritual authority, but the unbroken lineage of an entire nation. Here, the lion is not a mythical hybrid but a potent national symbol, its form carved in stone to proclaim a divine right to rule that stretches back to the biblical King Solomon himself. These are the lions of Judah, and they stand as majestic sentinels at the gates of ancient rock-hewn churches and imperial palaces, their stone manes framing faces of serene and unwavering power. More than just royal emblems, these sculptures became the very soul of Ethiopian resistance, a symbol of independence and cultural pride that would endure long after the fall of the empire that first carved them. The authority of the Ethiopian lion is rooted in one of the most powerful founding myths in the world, the Solomonic dynasty, According to the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic, the Queen of Sheba traveled to Jerusalem to meet the wise King Solomon. From their union was born Menelik I, who, the story goes, brought the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. This created an unbroken line of emperors who claimed direct descent from the House of David, making them the rightful heirs to the throne of Judah. The lion was the symbol of the Israelite tribe of Judah, and thus, by adopting it, the Ethiopian emperors were making a stone-carved declaration of their biblical sovereignty. This was not merely political propaganda. It was a statement of divinely ordained identity, a belief so deeply ingrained that it shaped the nation's consciousness for centuries. To see a Lion of Judah sculpture flanking an entrance was to understand that you were in the presence of a power that was both imperial and celestial. This symbolism was made physically manifest in the most sacred of state rituals, the coronation ceremony. When an emperor was crowned, these stone lions were not silent observers but active participants in the theater of power. The new ruler would be enthroned between a pair of them, or would hold a ceremonial staff topped with a golden lion, physically connecting themselves to the enduring strength and legitimacy the animal represented. The coronation was a reenactment of the Solomonic covenant, a renewal of the divine contract between the ruler, the people, and God. The stone lions, having witnessed generations of these ceremonies, were the eternal witnesses to this pact, their immutable forms guaranteeing its permanence. They were the anchors of tradition, ensuring that each new emperor was not just a political leader but the latest incarnation of a sacred, lion-blooded lineage. What makes the Ethiopian lion uniquely fascinating is its seamless fusion of indigenous belief with imported Christian iconography. The lions guarding the 12th century rock-hewn churches of Lalibela are often depicted with crosses pate on their shoulders or haunches, and sometimes even holding a cross-topped staff in their paws. This is a breathtaking visual synthesis. It merges the pre-Christian, pan-African reverence for the lion as the ultimate symbol of strength and kingship with the powerful new symbols of the Christian faith that arrived in the 4th century. The lion does not lose its power, it is baptized into it. It becomes a Christian guardian, its strength now in service of defending the faith. This fusion reflects the broader Ethiopian identity itself, a unique and enduring blend of ancient African tradition and deep Christian devotion, with the Lion of Judah standing as the perfect emblem for both. Perhaps the most powerful chapter in the story of this stone beast came in the modern era, when it transformed from a symbol of imperial authority into a rallying cry for national sovereignty. In the 19th and 20th centuries, as European colonial powers carved up the African continent, Ethiopia stood nearly alone as a symbol of unbroken independence. The lion became the heart of this identity. When the fascist forces of Mussolini's Italy invaded in 1935, it was Emperor Haile Selassie who invoked the Lion of Judah in his famous speech to the League of Nations, positioning himself not just as a ruler defending his land, but as the embodiment of an ancient nation resisting modern tyranny. The image of the lion was everywhere on flags, on propaganda posters, and in the hearts of the resistance fighters. It was no longer just about one emperor's right to rule. It was about every Ethiopian's right to be free. The stone lions that had guarded palaces for a millennium now stood for something even greater, the unyielding spirit of a people who refused to be conquered. In this transformation, we see the ultimate power of a symbol. It can outlive the political system that created it, evolving to meet the needs of a new era while drawing strength from its ancient roots, proving that a beast carved in stone can become the living, breathing heart of a nation's fight for its very soul. Moving from the sun-baked highlands of Ethiopia, we now venture into the deep, primordial forests and sweeping steppes of Eastern Europe, where the Slavic worldview was shaped by a harsh climate and a constant struggle for survival. Here, the stone beast takes on a form that is less about imperial glory and more about communal resilience, a creature born from the collective fears and hopes of village life. While grand, freestanding sculptures were less common than in other traditions, the image of the Zime Goranich, the legendary three-headed dragon, was sometimes carved into the very rocks that marked a village's boundary or into the wooden fortifications of a Kremlin wall. These were not monuments meant to be admired from a distance. They were functional, folkloric shields, apotropaic figures carved by and for the people to guard against a world that felt full of unseen dangers. The Zime Goranich was the ultimate embodiment of chaos. This was no noble, divine hybrid like the Lamashu. It was a voracious, fire-breathing nightmare. With its three heads, it could see danger coming from any direction, and its serpentine body represented an unstoppable, consuming force. It was the personification of everything that threatened a Slavic community: the sudden invasion of a rival tribe, the devastating sweep of a wildfire across the plains, the brutal famine that followed a failed harvest, or the mysterious plague that could wipe out a family overnight. By carving this image of pure chaos onto a boundary stone, the village was performing a powerful act of symbolic magic. They were capturing that chaos, giving it a form, and then using that very form to trap and neutralize its power. It was a classic case of fighting fire with fire, using the image of the beast to ward off the real-world manifestations of its destructive nature. This practice finds a powerful parallel in the heroic Bylony, the oral epic poems that were the storybooks of Slavic culture. The most famous tale involves the Bogata, or knight hero, Dobrynya Nikitich, and his epic three-day battle with the Zime Goranich. The story is a rich allegory for the eternal struggle between order and chaos. Dobrynya doesn't just defeat the dragon through brute force. He uses cunning, endurance, and the guidance of his mother, ultimately striking it down with a sacred weapon. When this triumphant scene was depicted on a stone, its meaning was instantly clear to every villager who saw it. It was a moral lesson carved in rock, teaching that overwhelming adversity could be overcome, but it required courage, perseverance, and community wisdom. The stone served as a permanent reminder that the heroes of their stories were not distant legends, but archetypes they themselves were meant to embody when facing their own daily struggles. The physical placement of these carvings was deeply strategic. A boundary marker was a place of immense legal and spiritual significance, the literal line between the safety of the known community and the perils of the unknown wilderness beyond. By carving the Zime Goranich there, the community was reinforcing that line on both a physical and a spiritual level. It was a warning to any human enemy that crossing this line would invoke the wrath of the dragon, and it was a warning to any malevolent spirit that it would have to contend with the village's own monstrous guardian first. Similarly, a carving on a fortress wall was believed to imbue the palisade with the dragon's own fierce defensive energy, making the wood or stone as impenetrable as dragon scales. This transformed simple architecture into a living, spiritual barrier. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Zime Goranich's role is that it was not always about outright destruction. In some folk traditions, the relationship with such powerful beings was more nuanced. There is evidence that near some of these carvings, particularly those associated with natural features like caves or unusual rock formations believed to be the dragon's lair, small rituals or offerings might be left. These weren't acts of worship, but rather acts of appeasement, a way to placate the chaotic force, to ask it to direct its fury elsewhere. A farmer might leave a bit of bread or milk not to honor the dragon, but to politely ask it to spare his fields from a hailstorm. This reveals a sophisticated and practical relationship with the supernatural, where the stone beast functioned not just as a guardian to be activated, but as a volatile power to be negotiated with and managed, a reflection of the precarious balance these agrarian societies had to maintain with the unpredictable natural world around them. Now we arrive at one of the most breathtaking and ingeniously multifunctional stone beasts in our entire journey, the Naga balustrades of the Khmer Empire. To walk the causeway leading to the ancient gateway of Angkor Thom is to participate in a ritual that is both architectural and spiritual, an experience meticulously engineered by Khmer artisans over 800 years ago. You are not simply approaching a temple, you are crossing a bridge between worlds, and the guardians of this passage are a seemingly endless row of towering, multi-headed stone serpents, their bodies forming a grand balustrade that guides your every step. This is the Naga, and in the Khmer world, it is far more than a mythical snake. It is a symbol of life, a weapon of the gods, a practical tool, and the ultimate guide for a pilgrim's transformative journey. The primary symbolic role of these magnificent balustrades is to represent a bridge, but not one made of mere stone. They are the physical manifestation of the link between the earthly realm of humans, known as Amrituloka, and the divine realm of the gods, the Devaloka. The Temple Mountain at the end of the causeway, like the iconic Angkor Wat itself, represents Mount Meru, the axis of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. Therefore, the path to its entrance is not a simple sidewalk. It is a recreation of the rainbow bridge to heaven, a pathway only the worthy could traverse. The Naga, with its body firmly on the ground and its multiple heads reared towards the sky, perfectly embodies this connection. It is a creature of both the underworld and the heavens, making it the ideal mediator, the perfect conductor for a human soul making its way from the profane to the sacred. To walk between them is to be symbolically escorted by these powerful beings, your passage sanctified and protected from the moment you set foot on the sacred road. This connection to the celestial is directly tied to one of the most important creation myths in Hindu lore, the churning of the ocean of milk. The story tells of a time when the gods and demons cooperated to churn the primordial ocean to extract the nectar of immortality, Amrita. They used the serpent king Vasuki as the churning rope, wrapping his body around Mount Mandara, which served as the churning rod. The Naga balustrades are a permanent stone retelling of this epic event. The long, taut body of the balustrade is Vasuki himself, being pulled back and forth by the opposing forces. The multi-headed crests at the end represent the king's many heads, watching over the entire operation. For the Khmer people, this was not just a story from the past. It was an ongoing cosmic process that ensured the stability of the world. The presence of the Naga at a temple meant that the sacred work of creation was continually being reaffirmed, that cosmic order was being maintained right there, in that very spot, with every ceremony that took place. The temple was not just a place of worship, it was a participant in the mechanics of the universe. The pure genius of the Khmer engineers, however, lies in how they merged this profound cosmic symbolism with utterly mundane, practical necessity. These balustrades were not merely decorative, they were brilliantly functional. First and foremost, they served as sturdy railings. The causeways they line are often long and elevated, and during the intense monsoon seasons, they would become slippery and dangerous. The Naga's body provided a vital handhold for countless pilgrims, a simple act of safety that nonetheless occurred under the gaze of a divine serpent. Even more impressively, the Naga was integrated into the empire's advanced water management system. The channels and moats that surrounded Khmer temples were essential for water storage, irrigation, and preventing flooding. The naga balustrades often functioned as elaborate drainage spouts. During a downpour, water would cascade from the temple roofs and walkways, channeled through the bodies of the stone nagas and out from their mouths, effectively having the celestial serpents spit the sacred waters back into the reservoir. This is a perfect example of Khmer ingenuity. A single stone feature could be a mythological character, a safety railing, and a critical piece of hydraulic engineering all at once. The spiritual and the practical were not just connected, they were one and the same. Finally, we must consider the powerful psychological impact of this design on the approaching worshipper. The journey to the temple was designed to be a transformative experience, a gradual shedding of the outer world and a preparation for inner contemplation. The naga balustrades are masterful directors of this experience. Their long, parallel lines create a powerful sense of perspective, forcefully drawing the eye and the body forward toward the central sanctuary. This creates a feeling of inevitability and focus, shutting out distractions and narrowing the pilgrim's entire world down to the path ahead. The repetition of the serpent heads, often 7 or 9 in number, creates a rhythm, a visual chant that accompanies the physical act of walking. The overall effect is one of being funneled, gently but firmly, from the chaos of the everyday into the ordered, sacred space of the temple. By the time one reached the gateway, the mind was already primed for reverence, having been guided every step of the way by the silent, coiled forms of the naga. In these balustrades, the Khmer Empire achieved a perfect synthesis, proving that the most profound spiritual truths could be expressed through the most intelligent design, creating a stone beast that was at once a myth, a tool, and an unforgettable experience. Soaring above the vast and varied landscapes of North America, from the arid mesas of the Southwest to the dense forests surrounding the Great Lakes, another form of stone beast commanded the skies not through physical presence, but through the powerful images carved into living rock. These are the thunderbird petroglyphs, and to view them as simple artistic depictions of a large bird is to utterly miss their profound significance. For the many Native American nations who created them, from the ancestral Puebloans to the Ojibwe, the thunderbird was a supreme spirit being, a celestial force of unimaginable power that governed the two most critical elements of survival, the weather that gave life and the warfare that could take it away. These rock carvings were not art in a decorative sense. They were functional, sacred instruments, a permanent interface between the human community and the volatile, powerful forces of the cosmos. Primary domain of the thunderbird was the sky itself. It was believed to create the thunder by flapping its massive, cloud-spanning wings, and to generate lightning by blinking its piercing, radiant eyes or by casting down bolts from its talons. In the arid Southwest, where the arrival of the summer monsoon rains meant the difference between a bountiful harvest and devastating famine, the thunderbird was a being of immense importance. Petroglyph sites, like those at Newspaper Rock in Utah or the Petroglyph National Monument in New Mexico, often feature these powerful images. They were not created at random. These locations were likely chosen as ceremonial centers where rituals were performed by spiritual leaders to call upon the thunderbird, to respectfully ask it to bring the life-giving rains to nourish the crops of corn, beans, and squash. The act of carving the image into the stone was itself a form of prayer, a way of making a permanent, unwavering request to the spirit world. The petroglyph served as a constant, silent invocation, its presence ensuring that the plea for balance and nourishment would never be forgotten. But the thunderbird's role was not solely one of benevolence. Its power was dualistic, embodying both creation and destruction. This formidable spirit was also a pivotal figure in warfare and protection. For tribes in the Great Lakes region, such as the Ojibwe, the thunderbird was a protector against the monstrous, serpentine underwater panther. a being that represented chaos and the dangers of the deep waters. A warrior might seek the thunderbird's favor before a raid or a battle, praying for its strength and ferocity to be granted to him. A petroglyph of the thunderbird carved near a village site or along a well-traveled river route, such as those found on the cliffs of the Mississippi River, served as a spiritual shield. It was an apotropaic marker, a warning to any malevolent spirits or enemy forces that this territory was under the protection of a mighty celestial guardian. Its exaggerated features, the vast wingspan, the sharp, grasping talons, the fierce beak, were not artistic whimsy. They were a direct communication of supernatural potency, designed to be understood on an instinctual level by both human and spirit alike. The placement of these carvings reveals a sophisticated understanding of the landscape that blended the spiritual with the intensely practical. Ethnographers and archaeologists have noted that thunderbird petroglyphs are frequently located along ancient trading routes, near prime hunting grounds, or at territorial boundaries. This was no coincidence. A prominent carving of the thunderbird acted as a cultural signpost. For a member of the tribe, it could signal that they were entering a zone of abundance, a place where game was traditionally plentiful and where the thunderbird's blessing could be sought for a successful hunt. For an outsider or a member of a rival group, the same image could serve as a clear territorial marker, a silent but formidable declaration that this land and its resources were watched over and protected by a powerful force. The stone beast functioned as a map, a border sign, and a spiritual claim all in one. Perhaps one of the most vital roles of the thunderbird petroglyph was its function as an educational tool. In cultures with rich oral traditions but no written language, these carvings were the textbooks for teaching the younger generations. An elder would bring a child to a site and use the image as a visual aid to recount the ancient stories. They would tell of the thunderbird's cosmic battles, which explained the natural phenomenon of thunderstorms. They would recount myths that detailed the proper ways to show respect to the spirit, teaching lessons about humility, courage, and the importance of maintaining balance with the natural world. The petroglyph was a starting point for transmitting a whole system of knowledge from meteorology and ecology to ethics and tribal law. It anchored abstract values and complex environmental knowledge to a specific, permanent place in the physical world, ensuring that the culture's most vital lessons were literally set in stone, ready to be read by anyone who knew how to see the world through the eyes of their ancestors. In the thunderbird, we see a perfect fusion of the spiritual and the ecological, a stone beast that was both a prayer for rain and a lesson in how to live within the world it helped to create. From the celestial protector of the Great Plains, we now travel to the heart of an empire built on law, order, and a powerful story of origin. In the bustling forums and sacred temples of ancient Rome, citizens and visitors alike would encounter a sculpture that distilled the entire identity of the world's greatest empire into a single, potent image, the Capitoline wolf. This iconic figure, a she-wolf with tense muscles and alert ears, lowers her head to tenderly nurse two human infants, Romulus and Remus. To the modern eye, it's a beautiful representation of a foundational myth. But for the Romans, it was something far more sophisticated, a masterfully crafted piece of political propaganda, a symbol of cultural unity, and a psychological anchor that legitimized Rome's authority for centuries, both at home and across its vast territories. The power of the she-wolf lies in its brilliant duality, its ability to embody two seemingly opposite ideas at once. On one hand, the wolf is the very picture of fierce, wild strength. Her body is coiled and ready to spring, her face is watchful and intelligent, her jaws capable of ferocious defense. This aspect represented the military might of Rome, the raw power that conquered and subdued the known world. It was a warning to enemies and a reassurance to citizens. Rome was strong, vigilant, and always ready to protect its own. Yet, in beautiful contrast, this formidable creature is simultaneously engaged in an act of profound nurture and compassion. She is not attacking the babies, she is saving them, feeding them, and offering them the protection they lacked. This nurturing side symbolized the state's role as paterfamilias, the father of the family. It promised that for those who lived peacefully under Roman rule, the empire would provide security, justice, and the fertile ground needed to prosper. The wolf wasn't just a predator, she was a provider. This combination was psychologically brilliant. It told every citizen that they were both protected by a fierce guardian and cared for by a benevolent parent, creating a deep, emotional bond between the people and the state. This sculpture was far from a passive museum piece. Its placement was a deliberate act of political theater. Imagine a citizen walking through the Roman Forum, the center of public life. There, amidst the basilicas and temples, stood the she-wolf. Its presence was a constant, silent reminder of the city's miraculous and heroic origins. It reinforced the idea that Romans were not ordinary people. They were descendants of a god Mars, the god of war, and saved by a divine animal. This instilled a sense of collective pride and superior destiny. For a visiting ambassador from a conquered land, the message was equally clear. It said, "Our power is not merely man-made, it is divinely ordained. Our founder was suckled by a wolf. How can you possibly hope to stand against us?" The myth, made tangible in bronze and stone, became an unassailable argument for the legitimacy of Roman rule. The empire's genius for administration is perfectly illustrated by what they did with this symbol. They didn't keep it solely in Rome. Exact copies of the Capitoline wolf were commissioned and sent to the far-flung corners of the empire, from the damp frontiers of Britannia to the bustling cities of North Africa. In these provincial forums, the sculpture served a crucial unifying purpose. For a Roman colonist living hundreds of miles from home, it was a comforting piece of the homeland, a reaffirmation of their identity and the values they held dear. For the local population living under Roman rule, it was a lesson in Roman culture and a symbol of the new power structure they were now part of. It was a tool of soft power, promoting assimilation and loyalty by giving everyone a shared foundational story. It wasn't just a piece of art, it was an instrument of statecraft, a standard of the empire that flew not on a flag, but was cast in enduring metal. The enduring legacy of the Capitoline wolf, through its many copies, ensured that this symbol of Rome's nurturing strength would far outlive the empire itself. It became a model for later European states seeking to connect themselves to classical authority, and a timeless emblem of the complex relationship between protection and power. High in the thin, rarefied air of the Himalayas, where the sky is a deep, endless blue and the peaks pierce the clouds, the environment itself feels sacred. Here, in the heart of Tibetan Buddhism, the stone beasts that guard the monasteries are not meant to intimidate, but to inspire. They are the snow lions, or Gang Sengji, and they embody a spirit that is uniquely suited to this high-altitude world. With their lush, flowing manes of turquoise curls, their powerful, white-furred bodies, and their mouths often open in a joyful, fearless roar, they are a breathtaking sight. Unlike the ferocious guardians of other traditions, the snow lion's power is not one of aggression, but of untamed jubilation and pure, unshakable courage. They represent the triumphant roar of the Buddha's teachings echoing across the mountaintops, a sound that dispels ignorance not with fury, but with the sheer, overwhelming force of truth and joy. The symbolism of the snow lion is a beautiful tapestry woven from the very landscape it inhabits. Its white body is the pure, untrodden snow of the highest peaks, while its turquoise mane represents the pristine, glacial lakes and the vibrant sky above. It is said to live only in the highest, most remote Himalayas, a realm of breathtaking beauty and extreme danger. In this way, the snow lion is the ultimate symbol of ecological harmony. It is not separate from its environment, it is the environment. Its very existence is a reminder that the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, are not an abstract philosophy removed from the world, but are instead deeply interconnected with the natural order. To protect the mountains is to protect the home of the snow lion, and by extension, to protect the principles it stands for. This creates a powerful spiritual incentive for environmental conservation that is built into the very art and architecture of the culture. You will find these magnificent creatures everywhere in Tibetan culture, each context adding a new layer to their meaning. They stand as stone sentinels at the gates of monasteries, their presence a promise that the space within is protected from negative influences and distractions, allowing for undisturbed meditation. Inside temples, they are depicted in vibrant thangka paintings, often flanking the central deity, their joyful energy balancing the serene wisdom of the Buddha. During festivals like Losar, the Tibetan New Year, dancers don elaborate snow lion costumes, their movements a lively performance meant to bring prosperity, happiness, and good fortune for the year to come. The dance is a prayer in motion, a communal invocation of the snow lion's fearless and joyful energy to bless the entire community. Perhaps the most profound role of the snow lion is as a guide on the internal, meditative journey. In Buddhist practice, the ultimate goal is to achieve enlightenment, a state free from all fear and delusion. The snow lion is the archetype of this fearless state. Its roar is said to be the sound of the sacred syllable, ah, which represents the pure, unoriginated nature of all phenomena. Meditating upon the image of the snow lion is a way for a practitioner to summon that same fearlessness from within themselves, to confront their own inner obstacles with joy and courage rather than with struggle. It teaches that the path to enlightenment is not a grim, arduous slog, but can be traversed with the playful, powerful confidence of a creature that has never known defeat. This transforms the snow lion from an external protector into an internal emblem of every practitioner's own highest potential, a roaring reminder that true bravery is born from wisdom and compassion, not from anger or violence. Now we ascend the soaring spires of medieval Europe, where the stone beast takes on a form that is at once monstrous, mischievous, and magnificently practical. Perched on the rain gutters of great cathedrals like Notre Dame de Paris, gargoyles present a fascinating paradox. By day, they are the stuff of nightmares, a bestiary of twisted demons, snarling dragons, and leering chimeras carved in stone. But when the storm clouds gather, these terrifying figures transform into something else entirely. They become functional hydraulics, their grotesque forms channeling torrents of rainwater away from the sacred masonry, spewing it from their gaping mouths far out into the empty air. This dual identity is the very essence of the gargoyle, a masterful fusion of engineering necessity and profound spiritual theater, designed to protect the church in both the physical and the metaphysical realms. Their primary function was deeply apotropaic, rooted in the medieval belief that evil was not an abstract concept but a tangible, lurking force. The world was thought to be teeming with invisible demons and malevolent spirits, all seeking to corrupt the faithful and defile holy ground. The gargoyle was the church's first line of defense against this unseen invasion. Its grotesque and frightening appearance was a form of spiritual warfare. The thinking was that an evil spirit, upon approaching the cathedral, would see one of its own kind, a creature even more monstrous and terrifying, guarding the premises, and would flee in confusion or fear. They were the sacred equivalent of a scarecrow, but for demons instead of crows. By carving these horrific forms onto the very edges of the building, the architects were creating a spiritual fence, a perimeter of protection that used the language of the monstrous to keep true monstrosity at bay. Yet their role was far more complex than simple guardianship. For the illiterate masses who filled the pews, the cathedral itself was a vast, three-dimensional Bible. Every stained glass window, every fresco, and every sculpture was a page in this stone book, designed to teach the lessons of Scripture. The gargoyles were a crucial, if terrifying, chapter. Their exaggerated features and tormented expressions served as stark, unforgettable memento mori reminders of the mortal sin that lurks within every soul and the gruesome fate that awaited the unrepentant in the fires of hell. A gargoyle depicting a gluttonous demon with a distended belly warned against the sin of greed. One shown being devoured by another beast illustrated the consequences of giving in to one's base nature. They were moral lessons carved in nightmare fuel, reinforcing the Church's teachings on virtue and vice by showing the horrific, monstrous end of a life led astray. This visual rhetoric was a powerful tool for reinforcing the Church's authority, making the consequences of disobedience terrifyingly clear to every citizen who gazed up at the roofline. To view them solely as religious symbols, however, is to ignore their powerful role as cultural barometers. The grotesque forms of gargoyles did not emerge from a vacuum. They were born from the very real and pervasive anxieties of daily life in the Middle Ages. The twisted, pained bodies of some figures eerily echo the ravages of the Black Death, which wiped out a huge portion of Europe's population and left a deep scar on the collective psyche. The monstrous, animalistic hybrids can be seen as reflections of a fear of the unknown wilderness that still pressed in at the edges of towns and villages. And the many gargoyles that take the form of hostile, mythical creatures like dragons likely channeled the very real, pervasive fear of foreign invasion and warfare that was a constant threat. In this sense, the gargoyle became a safe outlet for processing these overwhelming societal fears. By projecting these anxieties onto a stone figure and then placing it under the control of the Church, people could psychologically contain and manage their terror. The gargoyle was a scapegoat in granite, bearing the weight of the world's chaos so that those inside the Church could feel a sense of order and safety. Ultimately, the gargoyle stands as one of the most brilliantly multifaceted stone beasts ever conceived. It is a masterpiece of practical engineering, a sophisticated waterspout disguised as art. It is a spiritual guardian using its own monstrousness to ward off greater evil. It is a teacher using fear to impart crucial moral lessons. And it is a mirror reflecting the deepest fears and anxieties of the society that created it. In their leering, stony faces, we see the medieval mind grappling with the divine and the demonic, the logical and the superstitious, the hope for salvation and the terror of damnation, all while simply trying to keep the rain from washing their magnificent church away. Leaving the rain-swept spires of Gothic Europe behind, we plunge back through millennia to the sun-baked river valleys where urban civilization itself first took root. Here, in the heart of ancient Sumer, the stone beast was not a functional waterspout but a divine herald, a creature carved into the very walls of power to proclaim a fundamental truth about the universe. This is the Anzu bird, and to encounter it is to stand before a breathtaking paradox of form and meaning. Imagine a being with the powerful, regal body of a great eagle, its wings spread wide as if ready to take flight, yet it bears the fierce, maned head of a lion. This lion-headed eagle is more than a mythical hybrid. It is a walking, or rather flying, symbol of the Sumerian cosmos. A creature designed to embody the very principles of divine authority, and the eternal struggle required to maintain it. The Anzu bird was the sacred avatar of the god Ninurta, a deity of war, agriculture, and the south wind. But Ninurta was far more than a god of conquest. He was the divine champion of order, the protector of the cosmic status quo against the forces of chaos. The Anzu's primary role was to serve as his representative and protector, its image carved into the stone walls of temples and administrative buildings to stand eternal watch. Its presence was a declaration that this space, a place of law, commerce, and governance, was under the direct sanction of the gods. For a citizen bringing a dispute before a priest or a scribe recording the harvest taxes, the sight of the Anzu bird was a constant, silent reminder that their society's entire structure, from its laws to its levies, was part of a divine plan. It legitimized the entire machinery of the state by connecting it to the celestial realm. This connection to order is thrown into its sharpest relief by the creature's most famous mythological act, its rebellion. In the epic tales, the Anzu bird, despite its role as a guardian, becomes ambitious. It steals the sacred tablet of destinies from the god Enlil, the supreme deity. This was no ordinary theft. The tablet was not just a list of rules, it was the very source of cosmic power, the object that held the fundamental laws governing the universe. By stealing it, the Anzu wasn't just committing a crime, it was attempting to hijack the very fabric of reality, to unravel the ordained order of things and plunge creation into chaos. This story is the key to understanding the Anzu's deeper symbolism. It represents a terrifying truth that the very powers necessary to protect order, strength, intelligence, and divine access could, if corrupted by pride or ambition, become the greatest threat to that same order. This is where the myth transforms into a powerful political and social lesson. The story does not end with the Anzu's success. The gods are thrown into panic until the hero god Ninurta steps forward to confront the beast. In a tremendous battle, Ninurta eventually defeats the Anzu and retrieves the Tablet of Destinies, restoring balance to the world. This narrative was a foundational myth for Sumerian society. When this contest was depicted in stone reliefs, often showing Ninurta with his bow drawn against the massive bird, it was far more than an exciting story. It was a visual parable about the nature of righteous kingship. The ruler was meant to see himself as a new Ninurta. His duty was not just to wield power, but to wield it against the forces of chaos, whether they were foreign invaders, internal corruption, or natural disasters like floods that threatened the city's fragile existence. The Anzu bird symbolized all of these chaotic forces. By depicting its defeat, the sculpture reinforced the idea that the ruler was the essential agent of the gods, the only one who could confront such overwhelming threats and win, thereby ensuring the continued survival and prosperity of his people. The genius of the Anzu's design lies in its hybrid form, which is a direct expression of the Sumerian worldview. In their cosmology, the gods were not distant, abstract figures. Their power and attributes were intimately connected to the natural world. Specific animals were seen as vessels or manifestations of divine qualities. The lion represented unassailable strength and royal authority. The eagle represented far-reaching vision, speed, and a connection to the heavens. By merging these two creatures, the Sumerian artist created a new being that was greater than the sum of its parts, a perfect emblem of a power that was both supreme and celestial. This wasn't just artistic creativity, it was a theological statement. It communicated that the divine authority protecting the temple and the state possessed the lion's strength and the eagle's perspective, making it capable of seeing all threats and having the power to crush them. Ultimately, the stone reliefs of the Anzu bird, often placed in the busy corridors of administrative centers, served a dual audience. For the common person, it was a reassuring symbol of protection, a promise that the gods and their champion king were in control. For the scribes, priests, and officials working within those walls, it was a sobering reminder of their responsibilities. They were the stewards of the modern-day tablet of destinies, the legal codes, economic records, and religious decrees that held their society together. The myth warned them that the power they wielded was like the Anzu itself, a double-edged sword. It could be used to uphold order and justice, or it could be stolen and misused, leading to societal collapse. In this way, the Anzu bird stands as one of the most philosophically sophisticated stone beasts we have encountered. It is not a simple guardian but a narrative engine, a creature whose very story teaches a complex lesson about power, its necessity, its fragility, and the eternal vigilance required to keep it in its proper, righteous place. Now we set sail across the widest expanse of ocean on our planet, to the scattered islands of Polynesia, where the very act of finding land was a miracle of human skill and spiritual faith. Here, the stone beast takes on a deeply human, yet profoundly otherworldly form. These are the Tiki, and to encounter one is to stand before the face of an ancestor who has become a god. Carved from volcanic rock or dense, ancient wood, these figures with their oversized heads, bold, geometric features, and vast, penetrating eyes are more than sculptures. They are the solidified essence of a community's lineage, acting as spiritual anchors in a world of endless blue water and unpredictable horizons. The primary role of the Tiki was to serve as a direct connection to the deified dead. In the Polynesian worldview, powerful ancestors did not simply vanish after death. Their life force or mana remained and could be accessed by their descendants. A Tiki figure was a vessel for this mana, a permanent home where the ancestor's spirit could reside and be consulted. These figures were most often placed on the mari, the sacred, open-air ceremonial grounds that were the religious and social heart of a village. The mari was a liminal space, a bridge between the world of the living and the world of the gods. By placing the Tiki there, the community was effectively installing their most powerful ancestors as the permanent guardians of this bridge. They were the first beings you would approach before any important undertaking, their silent, watchful presence a constant reminder that every decision, from going to war to planting a new crop, required the blessing of those who had come before. This function as a spiritual anchor was absolutely critical for a culture of master navigators. For the Polynesians, who embarked on voyages of thousands of miles across the trackless Pacific in double-hulled canoes, the psychological need for fixed points of reference was immense. The ocean was a fluid, ever-changing highway. The islands were small, temporary stops, but the Tiki on the mari were permanent. They were the unmovable rocks around which the entire culture could orient itself. A sailor setting out on a perilous journey would make an offering to the Tiki, asking for protection and favorable winds. Upon his successful return, his first act might be to return to the mari to give thanks, his survival itself being proof of the ancestor's potent mana. In this way, the Tiki became a navigational aid not in the literal sense of a chart, but in the spiritual sense of a homeland beacon. No matter how far a voyager traveled, he carried the image of the Tiki in his mind, a symbol of the safe harbor, the ancestral power, and the cultural identity that awaited his return. The creation of a Tiki was never a simple act of craftsmanship. It was a sacred ritual governed by strict protocols that blurred the line between art and religious sacrament. The process was led by a master carver, a man of high status who was himself considered to be imbued with mana. The selection of the stone or tree was a ceremonial act, often involving prayers and offerings to the spirit of the material itself. The carving was done with stone adzes and coral abraders, a painstaking process that could take months. Throughout this time, the carver and his assistants would often observe strict tapu religious restrictions, such as fasting or abstaining from certain activities to maintain the spiritual purity necessary for the work. The final act was the wakanoa, the ritual that would awaken the figure, effectively opening its eyes and inviting the ancestral spirit to take up residence within it. This ceremony, involving chants, offerings, and the participation of the entire community, was what transformed a beautifully carved block of stone into a living deity. The Tiki was not a representation of power, it was the power itself made tangible and accessible. Beyond their roles as guardians and anchors, Tiki figures were active participants in the most vital aspects of community life. In rituals related to fertility, a Tiki associated with a prolific ancestor might be offered gifts of food and flowers by couples hoping to conceive, its own generative power believed to stimulate human reproduction. Before battle, warriors would gather around the war Tiki, its fierce expression and aggressive posture designed to channel martial fury and courage into their hearts. Offerings of captured weapons or even portions of the defeated enemy might be presented to it after a victory, a way of feeding its mana and thanking it for its intervention. This practical, transactional relationship with the divine shows that the Polynesians saw their gods not as distant, judgmental figures, but as active partners in the struggle for survival and prosperity. The Tiki was the physical point of contact for this partnership, a silent but powerful ally in the ongoing challenge of building a civilization on the most remote islands on Earth. From the sacred Mari of Polynesia, we now voyage to the heart of an empire that saw itself as the last bastion of civilized order in a changing world. In the grand churches and opulent palaces of Byzantium, a new kind of hybrid guardian stood watch, its form a perfect synthesis of East and West. This is the Byzantine Griffin, and its presence was a declaration of imperial power so profound it transcended mere decoration. With the powerful, muscular body of a lion and the sharp, regal head and wings of an eagle, this creature was the ultimate emblem of an emperor's God-given right to rule. But to understand its true significance, we must see it not as a solitary statue, but as a single, crucial piece in a vast and intricate mosaic of power, faith, and commerce that stretched from the gates of Constantinople to the distant markets of the Silk Road. The Griffin was a masterful piece of symbolic borrowing, a creature whose very DNA was a map of the cultural forces that shaped the Byzantine Empire. Its lineage can be traced directly back to the ancient palaces of Persia and the myth-soaked art of archaic Greece. The Byzantines, inheritors of the Roman mantle but deeply influenced by the Orient, did not see this as a contradiction. Instead, they synthesized these influences into something entirely new and uniquely their own. By adopting the Griffin, they were making a powerful statement about their identity. They were the heirs to both classical Greek wisdom and Roman imperial grandeur, while simultaneously commanding the mystical aura and luxurious sophistication of the East. The Griffin was this fusion made flesh, or rather, made stone. It was a hybrid creature for a hybrid empire, a living symbol of Byzantium's role as the crossroads of the world, where the legacy of Caesar met the splendor of the Orient. Where you found this beast told you everything you needed to know about its purpose. Flanking the entrances to the great church of Hagia Sophia, a pair of stone griffins were not just guardians of a physical doorway, they were protectors of the very threshold between heaven and earth. Their job was to defend the most sacred space in the empire from any spiritual corruption, their fierce gaze deterring demonic forces that might seek to disrupt the divine liturgy unfolding within. Yet in the imperial palace their roles shifted. Here they stood watch over the throne room and the treasury, their composite nature reflecting the emperor's own dual authority. The lion's body proclaimed his earthly power and strength, his ability to command armies and rule his subjects. The eagle's head and wings, however, signaled his divine connection, his role as God's chosen representative on earth with a perspective that reached into the heavens. The griffin was the perfect symbol for the Byzantine ideal of symphony, the harmonious union of secular and religious authority, both vested in the emperor. The materials chosen for these sculptures were a critical part of their message. These were not rough-hewn figures carved from local fieldstone. The most prestigious griffins were crafted from the finest white marble or even polished porphyry, a rare, deep purple stone quarried from a single location in Egypt and legally reserved for imperial use alone. The choice of such luxurious, exotic materials was a deliberate display of immense wealth and access. It showed that the empire commanded resources from across the known world, that it could afford to use priceless stone for symbolic purposes. The gleaming white marble and rich purple porphyry conveyed an aura of permanence, stability, and timeless authority. For a visiting ambassador, the message was clear: this is not a fleeting kingdom. This is an eternal power, rooted in divine right and backed by unimaginable riches. The griffin's value was not just in its form, but in its very substance. Perhaps the most fascinating role of the Byzantine griffin was its function as a brand. Art historians have traced the image far beyond the walls of Constantinople, finding it on luxury goods, silks, ivories, and silverware that traveled the Silk Road trade networks. A Chinese merchant or a Frankish chieftain might never set foot in the imperial capital, but they could own a silk garment embroidered with griffins or drink from a silver cup engraved with its image. In this context, the creature became a portable symbol of Byzantine authority and quality. It was a stamp of excellence, associating the product with the sophistication and power of the empire. This transformed the griffin from a stationary guardian into a mobile ambassador, its image spreading the ideology of Byzantium to every corner of the known world. It communicated cross-cultural prestige, telling foreign elites that to possess something adorned with this symbol was to share in a small piece of that distant, fabled glory. The griffin, in all its forms, was a masterpiece of ideological engineering, a stone beast that guarded not just places, but an entire worldview, ensuring that the emperor's power was felt in the church, the palace, and across the vast expanse of the medieval world. Now we journey into the heart of the world's greatest rainforest, where the very air hums with life and the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds feels almost non-existent. Here, the stone beast transforms entirely, shedding its monumental scale and becoming something intimate, personal, and deeply integrated into the daily rhythm of existence. In the diverse indigenous cultures of the Amazon basin, the stone sculptures of jaguars, anacondas, harpy eagles, and other powerful creatures are not grand monuments to empires or gods. They are something far more profound, physical anchors for the living spirits of the forest itself. These small, often hand-sized carvings, shaped from river-smooth stones, are not art to be displayed and admired from a distance. They are working tools, the most intimate and essential partners in a lifelong conversation with the animistic world, a world where every plant, animal, and stream possesses a conscious spirit that must be acknowledged, respected, and engaged with. The primary function of these carvings is to serve as vessels or conduits for specific animal spirits, which are seen as powerful allies. A shaman or a skilled hunter doesn't simply pray to a distant, abstract jaguar god. Instead, they might carry a small, carefully carved stone jaguar, its form abstracted to its most essential elements, perhaps just the curve of a powerful jaw or the suggestion of spotted fur. This object is not a symbol, it is a point of contact. Through dreams, rituals, and the use of sacred plant medicines like ayahuasca, the practitioner seeks to connect with the spirit of the jaguar, inviting that spirit to inhabit or bless the stone carving. Once this connection is made, the carving becomes a battery of that animal's specific energy. A jaguar spirit might lend its stealth, patience, and lethal precision to a hunter. The spirit of the anaconda, a creature of the water and the underworld, might offer its healing power and knowledge of hidden things to a shaman diagnosing an illness. The harpy eagle, who sees all from the canopy, might grant vision and clarity. Each stone beast is a specialized tool, its power directly tied to the unique qualities of the animal it represents and the relationship its keeper has built with that spirit. This relationship extends beyond the individual to the very structure of society. Many of these carvings are also deeply tied to clan identities. In these cultures, people often believe they are descended from a specific animal ancestor, a concept known as totemism. A stone jaguar carving, therefore, might not just be a hunter's tool. It could be the sacred emblem of the jaguar clan, a physical reminder of their shared ancestry and the responsibilities that come with it. It connects each member to their collective history and to the living jaguars in the forest, fostering a sense of kinship and mutual obligation. This isn't a vague environmentalism, it is a hard-wired cultural imperative for conservation. You protect the jaguars in the wild because they are your family, and their strength is your strength. The stone carving becomes a constant, tactile reminder of this sacred contract between the human community and the natural world. Perhaps the most fascinating integration of these stone beasts is found in the realm of Amazonian plant medicine, a field of knowledge so advanced it continues to astound modern science. Ethnobotanists working with indigenous healers have documented that specific stone carvings are often used in direct conjunction with specific medicinal plants. The carving is not a separate, decorative item on the shaman's altar. It is an active participant in the healing process. For example, a healer treating a patient with a powerful, potentially toxic plant might place a stone anaconda carving beside the preparation. The anaconda spirit, associated with water and the ability to navigate dangerous liminal spaces, is believed to help control the plant spirit, to cool its fiery power and guide the healer in using it safely and effectively. The stone beast acts as a spiritual modulator, a partner that helps the shaman harness the immense power of the rainforest's pharmacy without being overcome by it. This reveals a truly holistic view of health, where wellness is achieved not just through biochemistry, but through a balanced relationship between the patient, the plant, and the animal spirit, all mediated through the intimate, powerful presence of the carved stone. The abstract, minimalist form of these carvings is itself a profound statement. Unlike the highly realistic sculptures of the Greeks or the detailed iconography of Asia, Amazonian stone beasts are often reduced to their purest, most essential forms. A jaguar might be represented by a single, smooth stone with a few grooves suggesting limbs and a powerful head. This abstraction is not a lack of skill. It is a deliberate philosophical choice. It reflects a deep understanding that the true essence of the jaguar spirit is not its physical appearance, but its energy, its jaguarness. The carving doesn't need to look exactly like a jaguar, it needs to feel like one. This approach demonstrates a worldview that values essence over appearance, connection over representation. It allows the human mind to project the infinite complexity of the living spirit onto a simple, solid form, making the vast, intimidating power of the rainforest something tangible, approachable, and manageable. In their simplicity, these stones hold multitudes, As our final beast, the Amazonian animal spirit carving brings our journey to a deeply resonant close. We began with the colossal, outward-facing guardians like the Sphinx and the Lamashu, whose purpose was to project power to the world and defend against external threats. We end with these small, inward-facing partners, whose purpose is to facilitate harmony and understanding within the world. They represent the opposite end of the spectrum, yet they share the same core truth, that a stone shaped by human hands is never just a stone. In the Amazon, it becomes an ecological partner, a constant physical reminder that humans are not separate from nature, but are one thread in a complex, living web. These carvings teach that sustainability is not a policy. It is a relationship, a daily practice of respect and reciprocity with the other beings, animal, plant, and spirit, with whom we share our home. They are the smallest of our 26 beasts, but in their intimate, powerful connection to the pulse of the living world, they might just be the most profound. What unites a Norse dragon Prow, a Mayan vision serpent, and a Chinese guardian lion? On the surface, they are separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, products of cultures that never knew the other existed. Yet, when we step back and view all 26 of these stone beasts together, a breathtaking pattern emerges. They are not random acts of creativity, but are instead brilliant, independent answers to the same fundamental human questions. Across every continent and era, our ancestors turned to stone, giving form to their deepest anxieties and highest aspirations, and in doing so, they created a shared language of symbol and function that speaks to something universal within us. The most immediate and obvious theme that binds these creatures together is protection, but this was never a simple matter of building a better lock for the door. This was protection on a multidimensional scale. The Lamashu of Mesopotamia and the Komenu of Japan both stood at gateways, but they were guarding far more than a physical entrance. They were sentinels at the threshold between the known and the unknown, the human and the supernatural. They protected against tangible enemies, the invading army, the rival clan, but also against the invisible, malevolent forces of disease, drought, and despair. The Sheila Nagig, with her shocking display, used a form of symbolic shock therapy to divert evil, while the gargoyles of medieval Europe, in their grotesque glory, were the church's first line of defense against demonic invasion. This universal urge to guard what is precious reveals a profound vulnerability at the heart of the human experience. Life was fragile, and these stone beasts were the anchors communities built to feel just a little more secure in an unpredictable world. Yet, these sculptures were never just shields, they were also bridges. This is the theme of spiritual intermediation, the desperate, hopeful need to connect with forces greater than ourselves. The methods varied wildly, but the goal was the same: to make the divine tangible. The Maya did it through ecstatic ritual, using their own blood to summon the vision serpent as a smoking portal for gods and ancestors to step through. The Rapa Nui people did it through quiet, constant presence, positioning the Moai to channel the mana of their deified forebears to bless the living. The Aboriginal cultures of Australia did it through storytelling and song, using stone arrangements of the rainbow serpent as maps of creation and guides to the land's sacred laws. In each case, the stone beast acted as a translator, converting human devotion into a language the gods could understand, and divine power into a form the community could access. They made the vast, impersonal cosmos feel personal and approachable. Of course, this spiritual authority was far too powerful a tool to be left solely to priests. It was inevitably harnessed for the third great theme, political legitimacy. A king or emperor was not just a ruler, he had to be a hero, a demigod, the sole individual who could command the forces of order. The stone beast was his ultimate propaganda. The great Sphinx did not just guard the necropolis, it fused the pharaoh's head with a lion's body, visually asserting his divine right to rule as the sun god's representative. The Persian manticore, with its human lion-scorpion hybrid form, was a walking metaphor for the king's terrifying, all-consuming power, designed to psychologically paralyze any potential challenger. And the Olmec colossal heads were the ultimate political billboards, their immense scale and individualized features proclaiming the ruler's dominance in a land without written records. These sculptures were the ancient equivalent of a crown, a scepter, and a military parade, all rolled into one permanent, unignorable statement of authority. Perhaps the most sophisticated theme, and one that feels strikingly modern, is the pursuit of environmental harmony. For many of these cultures, the stone beast was not separate from nature but a key component within it. The Inca puma sculptures were often aligned with solstices, making them not just symbols of strength but functional astronomical tools that helped regulate the agricultural calendar. The Amazonian animal spirit carvings were intimate partners in a holistic relationship with the rainforest, their power directly tied to the health of the jaguars, anacondas, and eagles they represented. And the Tibetan snow lion, with its white body and turquoise mane, was quite literally the landscape deified. Its essence was the snow of the peaks and the blue of the lakes. These cultures understood that humanity's survival was inextricably linked to the natural world, and their stone beasts served as permanent reminders of that sacred contract, encoding ecological knowledge and ethical responsibility into a form that would endure for generations. When we see these four themes: protection, spiritual intermediation, political legitimacy, and environmental harmony woven together, we finally understand that the term art is almost insufficient. These creations were not for galleries, they were the operating system of ancient civilizations. They were the law books, the historical records, the scientific instruments, and the religious texts, all expressed in a universal language of form and symbol that everyone, regardless of literacy, could understand. They gave people a shared identity, a common purpose, and a way to navigate the terrifying mysteries of existence. Their enduring power lies in this multifunctional genius. They are not relics we simply look at, they are conversations we can still have. They ask us what we fear, what we worship, how we seek power, and how we relate to the world around us. In studying them, we don't just learn about the past, we learn about the enduring human condition and the ways we still seek to carve our own answers to these eternal questions into the world today. From the silent, watchful gaze of the great Sphinx to the profound ancestral wisdom emanating from the Polynesian Tiki, our journey across continents and centuries reveals a truth that shatters our modern categories. These 26 stone beasts were never just art. They were the dynamic, beating heart of ancient civilization itself, multifunctional instruments engineered for survival, spirituality, and power. They were the original guardians, standing sentinel at the fragile boundary between the human village and the chaotic wilderness. They were the first teachers, using the universal language of form to encode complex myths, moral codes, and astronomical knowledge for generations who would never read a written word. They were the tools of kings and priests, projecting authority, legitimizing rule, and forging a collective identity so powerful its echo still resonates today. But perhaps their most enduring legacy is the profound question they pose to us in the modern world. We surround ourselves with our own symbols and monument skyscrapers that claw at the sky, digital avatars in virtual realms, abstract sculptures in public plazas. Yet how many of them serve a deeper purpose beyond aesthetics or corporate branding? The stone beasts challenge us to consider the soul of our own creations. What do our towering structures protect? What values do our public statues truly communicate? What stories will the artifacts we leave behind tell future generations about what we feared, what we worshipped, and what we truly valued? The silent stone lips of these ancient creatures urge us to build not just for show, but for meaning, to create not just for the present, but with the intention of leaving a legacy that, thousands of years from now, will inspire as much awe and curiosity as they have left for us. This exploration of humanity's shared heritage is just the beginning. If this journey into the world's greatest historical mysteries captivated your imagination, then you're exactly the kind of curious mind we make these deep dives for. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the forgotten corners of history. Now we want to hear from you. Of all the stone beasts we explored, from the protective Lamashu to the mystical vision Serpent, which one captured your imagination the most? Tell us your favorite in the comments below and share why it resonates with you. We read every single one. Thank you so much for watching, for wondering, and for exploring the wonders of our past. Keep asking questions, and we'll see you